this science that
Correct.
people call genetics was brought about by a
Right,
white
right,
man.
right. The methodology, right? Exactly.
Exactly. I'm not
Um,
saying the genes because these genes have been existing prior to his existence.
right, correct, exactly, exactly. And so that's where so that's where we need to get to know the methodology. How is it that scientists, period, not just white scientists, but black geneticists, Hispanic geneticists, Chinese geneticists, how is it that they are determining, how is it that they are rating these things? And there is a process for that. That there is a rigorous process for determining these things. I mean, you can approach it from the aspect of uh, something as simple as how do they extract the genes in the first place, to
What's
the
the tool that's used to do this?
right. They I don't know the specific. So, for example, I know that when they there's some genes that they are able to extract
It's technology,
from.
is it not?
Correct. Yeah. I mean, they have tools. They have scientific tools for to do these things. Yeah. Hmm.
That's exactly what I'm saying, bro. Our ancestors didn't deal with these tools.
Right. They didn't
Okay?
have this
When it really comes,
technology,
go ahead.
but is that a knock on technology as a period? Is that a knock on technology as a whole, or is that because they didn't have these specific technological advances that we have today? Because if it's a knock on technology as a whole, I mean, then uh, should we render their technological advances meaningless, or downplay them simply because it is it is Native American science or African science? I mean,
I'll put it
what are
like
we
this,
getting to?
bro. I'll put it like this. When I study my ancestors, I don't go to genetics. And I'm not even worried completely about where we derived from prior to the Americas, prior to the continent of Africa. The main thing that I'm interested in learning is the ways of life that my ancestors lived, the
Mhm.
cosmological stories that my ancestors spoke, the morals that they had. You know what I'm saying?
Right,
The way they perceived life and how
right,
it came about. I'm 100% interested in more into the field of living these ways out, literally, before I ever step into a genetic science that, like you said, is a methodology that comes from a white man. Because when it comes down to it, these tools that I was referring to and that we identified as technology are
mhm,
things that are updated. I'll give you an example. The Sphinx, which is originally called the Heru Imhaketsi in Kemet or in Egypt or whatever people want to call this landmass in North Africa. This in the early 2000s was labeled to be 5000 BC and older, but new studies on the Heru Imhaketi through carbon dating and through the evolution of this particularly technological tool has
mhm,
been shown that this sculpture is at least over 20,000 years old. Okay?
mhm.
Now, I could clearly see from just me saying that yo, this way of using technology to bring about the factual evidence and the determination of identifying fact or non-fact, it is not something that is 100% eligible to lean on because it switches up, it changes up, it is
Right.
updated. For all I know, bro, there's going to be a technology that's going to come about in the future that's going to disprove everything we're both saying. You know what I'm saying? So I don't deal with technology too much because it is not what my ancestors dealt with. And when I was asking, I think that's a sister earlier about what is the tool and how I was saying why genetics is a white man's science is because the tools that are used to determine fact from fiction dealing with genetics is a white
Right.
man's tool. It's a white man's creation.
All right, so let me
Right. Can I address that? Can I address that? There's two points that you made there. One was the statement that you don't go to genetics, and you don't use the white man's science to get to your ancestors philosophy,
We
moral
could cut
outlook.
we could cut the white man out of it. We could just say genetics, period.
Okay, or
Technology, period.
technology. Okay, to get to your ancestors, moral
Because
outlook,
when it comes down to it,
science.
bro, these AIs, you know what I'm saying? This artificial intelligence that we're speaking of,
Right.
this technology is the opposite of what we had. We had technology, okay? But our
Mhm.
technology was nature. That's what people need to understand. Our ancestors' technology, from whether you're speaking from Africa or to the Americas, was nature.
Right.
It was
Right.
the human body. It was our mentality. It was our eyes. And it was the
Okay. Now.
nature and elements around us that shown improve things from being fact to fiction. That's the
Okay.
technology we used.
Okay. Now that's a third point that I would have to address in a bit, but I just wanted to get to the statement that you don't go to genetics to find out your ancestors' moral outlook, philosophy, spirituality, and lifestyle, and so on and so forth. But neither do geneticists go to genetics to figure those things out either. And 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 those things.
I'm
Uh,
saying to learn about my ancestors in general, bro. I'm not talking about those particular things
Well,
alone
let
because
me
I understand that
let
geneticists
me
go
jump
to
in real
genetics
quick
to
though.
figure out the origins of
right,
things. I understand that.
But
right, right,
let me jump in real quick though. I just want to address something real quick though, not to cut you off, bro.
yeah.
So just to get to the foundation of how he feels, do you feel personally that you do not trust geneticists? You do not trust the science to be able to pinpoint exactly where your specific ancestry descends from? Because
Well,
you're talking
because
about
first
two
of
different
all,
things.
geneticists will tell you. I know there's different branches of geneticists. You know what I mean? There's more than one person that studies this, but there was a group of geneticists that told us it's a video on YouTube, and they'll tell you you can't 100% determine where a skeleton structure. You can't determine their race and where they came from. You can't 100% do this.
Right,
Okay,
not
and
at
this
a
is
100%. Correct.
and that's
Yeah.
100%. So when it comes down to this whole issue and this whole um, um, ideology that the Africans or of Black people, period, didn't inhabit these lands in ancient times and weren't the foundation of civilization on this landmass, the only thing that disproves it and puts that back into a corner is this genetic science that I've heard geneticists say to myself is not 100% reliable when dealing with the origins of where people come from. The
Well,
only
that's
thing that's
true.
100% valid when it comes to genetics is taking my blood because I'm a live host, taking your blood because you're a live host, and seeing if we're connected in any way.
Well, that's true. Like the science is not there where we can exactly 100% pinpoint. Like for example, people who are in that live in the African diaspora, the genetic science cannot 100% pinpoint what specifically their tribes are from, but they are more or less able to give you a genetic estimate where how their DNA compares to a relative population in a certain area in Africa. But where DNA fails, then we have other methodologies to be able to get to our answers, like craniology. We have, the anthropology, like the study of where humans descended from. We are able to see different things. Like it's not just DNA that we depend on. I'm just trying to
Okay.
get. I'm just trying to understand if the methodology is a problem because yeah, you're right. Like DNA testing or ancestral genetic testing is not where it's not where it should be. It will be eventually, but we're not there yet. But
That's what I was saying
you
earlier.
then
In
you
the
have to be able
future,
to answer though what since it's we know it's not 100%, then what is your specific method? How is your specific methodology more accurate or provides more information than what geneticists know?
I'm glad you brought that up, and I respect what you're saying right now. And this the thing, bro. I see it like this: a wise man doesn't doubt anything. A wise man knows the possibilities of all things. And it's the arrogance that leads me to have this passion of saying this science is 100% pseudo. This science is, I won't even say pseudo, this science is 100% non factual. It comes from a European and all these things that you hear me saying. It's because when I say that my ancestors are African people, when I say that the first people to step foot on this landmass were black people, it's the arrogance that's in response to me saying this that comes from maybe not you particularly, but people that have your mentality. Okay, and arrogance breeds arrogance, and that's where that's created. That's probably where you hear what I'm saying at a probably a disrespectful level or completely shunning something. But I put it like this, bro. I think it's completely arrogant to sit there and say people came from a landmass that's 10,000 miles farther, no, 5,000 miles farther to the Americas than a landmass that's literally 5,000 miles across the Atlantic. And we got to look at this. But first of all, before I go any deeper, who do you honestly sit here and think were the first inhabitants of this landmass?
Well, I personally am of the idea that, the Native Americans are the first inhabitants of the landmass, and their ancestors were the Paleo Indians, and their ancestors were the Siberians who crossed the Bering Strait. That's
The
where
Siberians.
you,
Okay, okay. And but we do understand that the Bering Straits is a theory.
it's debated. Yes, it is.
Okay. And would you agree that the Siberian people are Asiatic?
Yes.
Okay. Now, this is my other point. Okay. People, I may not be able to sit here and tell you that the first inhabitants of this land were African. I mean, I can, but I won't have as much proof as I would by saying this. The first inhabitants of Asia are dark-skinned people with nappy hair. That is a fact, and these nomadic tribes still live throughout Asia to this day, and their phenotype is identical to the Khoisan, and their hair is even nappier than the Khoisan. So this is the thing. Let's say these Siberians crossed the Bering Straits and came into this landmass. Okay, when they first stepped on this landmass, they had this nappy hair and this dark pigments that if we were to look at them today, we would call them black people. Now, people will sit here and act like this mutation that occurred due to a change in dietary choices, due to a change in climate, happened as soon as their foot touched this landmass. It took thousands of years for a Native American to come up looking like Hun or me. It took thousands of years. And what I'm saying is that for the people that lean on the theory of the Bering Straits, bro, even when you step to that, first of all, how long ago was this Bering Strait thing?
Well, we know that the Paleo Indians came from the Bering Strait because they lived
How
in
long ago?
Beringia. They lived in Beringia, but the estimated is about 12 to 13,000 years ago.
Okay, 12 to 13,000 years ago. Okay, that's a long time ago. That is very long. And I don't know about you, but when I observe people, I see that the farther you step back in history, the darker people get. Okay, I'm not gonna sit here and call them African because I know that doesn't set right with a lot of people, but it's a fact that the farther you go back, the darker people get. Now let's take a Siberian, an Asiatic person 13,000 years ago. These people were dark skinned with nappy hair because let's be honest, the Asiatic people did not start in Siberia. Okay, this happened more east in Asia, and these tribes that are to this day in East Asia have black skin, bro. I'm not going to say black skin, but dark brown skin, something a lot of people would identify as black with nappy hair, looking identical to the Khoisan. So when people say, oh, black people were not the first people to get on this landmass, genetics say this and genetics say that, I'm like, bro, that sounds crazy. And when it really comes down to it, who was more culturally advanced in ancient times, Asia or Africa? Africa was more culturally advanced in ancient times. And when you look at Africa across the Atlantic to Brazil in South America, bro, it's a 5,000-mile travel. And Africans have always been more advanced in technology. And I'm not saying this technology that lights up lamps and electricity and all this shit. I'm speaking about just in architecture, in language, and all these things. Africans have always been more advanced. Okay, Asians were coming to a temple that you could study right now called the Waset temple, the temple of Waset. Asians, Romans, Greeks were all coming to this particular geographical location to learn, okay? And they took the sciences that they learned and they built their kingdoms and their empires and their everything, okay? And when it comes to the Asians were some of the first people that tried to conquer Egypt. And there's depictions in the holies of holies showing the first king of Egypt having his hands around Asiatic people with a instrument of war in his hand, bashing their heads in, okay? And when you look at these Asiatic people, their eyes are chinky as hell, and their hair is freaking nappy.
Well,
Okay.
okay, so I'll ask you this then. So, based on what methodology has led you to the conclusion that the people who might have crossed the Bering Strait, because this is the thing too, the whole thing behind Beringia, it's not debated whether or not they crossed it. Anthropologists are not debating that they crossed it. What they're debating
Why do they call it
how
a Bering Strait
they
theory?
they're not, no, I'm telling you, like, they're not debating how long, if they crossed it or not. That is not a debate. The debate is how long did they stay in Beringia, because there were artifacts and remnants of a civilization that existed on that Icelandic landmass, and they're debating how long they were there before moving into the Americas. But the fact that they crossed Beringia is not in question. Scholars who study this are not debating this. So my whole point is, based on what methodology are you using? Since we're not going to talk about genetics because you feel like that's, like, whitewash or whatever you want to consider it.
Matter of fact, no, due to the fact that I'm talking with people that are actually respectful with their words and not arrogant, we could talk about genetics, and I'll be happy to learn what you know about genetics that leads you to believing what you believe. Fact,
All
it's
right,
just straight up, you know what I mean?
so I'll ask you a question then. Like, that's my question. Like, what methodology has led you to the conclusion that the people who crossed the Bering Strait, just for argument's sake, were of nappy hair texture and, African and Congo? Where are you getting your information from? Based on what?
It's due to this fact, bro. When you like I just said, it's not a methodology, it's not a theory. You have to understand that the original inhabitants of Asia were black people, period, with nappy hair and brown skin, as I said. Okay. Now the Siberians that you see in Siberia today are very watered down. Why? Because they were invaded by multiple people, such as the Turks, such as many invasions, and these people got culturally mixed. And you see Siberian people today that look damn near white. Okay, but when you take Siberia 13,000 years ago, let me ask you something. When was Siberia founded?
Well, we understand that, like, for example, that part of Russia, it's not a question of when they were founded, but it was more of like that part of Russia. We know
Well,
that,
was it inhabited?
yeah, exactly.
The modern nation of Siberia, the creation of the modern nation of Siberia has
Is
nothing to
nothing to,
do with
exactly.
the
Wait,
historical
wait. So wait,
context.
correct me if I'm wrong. I think I'm wrong, but then I think I heard you right. You're saying that people weren't inhabiting Siberia 13,000 years ago?
No,
No, they
what we're
were.
saying is that the
Okay,
modern
they
day
were. Okay, they
that we
were.
understand Siberia
Yes.
today has nothing to do with the ancient populations who inhabited it 13,000, 15,000, 20,000 years ago,
I
however
agree
long
with
it
you.
was.
I
Well,
We
I
agree with
wouldn't
you.
hold on. I wouldn't say it has nothing to do with the people who were there. The political border and the nation, the political context of it
exactly.
has nothing to do with the
Okay,
people
okay,
that
yeah,
were
yeah.
there. Now, the people that were there, uh, even up to 45,000 years ago, I okay, at 45,000 years ago, there's no question without a doubt that their skull structure, and this is where we have to get into technicalities. It is impossible to talk about these things without being precise about what we are talking about. The skull structure of any human being 45,000 years ago would have been a lot closer to, I would say, a Melanesian. I wouldn't even say as much as an Australian, because their skull structure is a lot more um how do you say, I don't want to be offensive, but it's a lot more deformed, you could say, or
More
in
Neanderthal like.
anthropological, yeah, because they mixed a lot with other archaic hominins while they were making their way to Australia. We're talking about Denisovans, Neanderthals, and who knows what else they
They
have
have
in
a
their genes.
protruding brow. The way
Right,
the structure is, the way the structure is set up. So you would have to compare it to a archaic Melanesian population.
right,
That has significantly more features that we as modern humans can identify with. They wouldn't be
correct,
considered,
correct. But
um
nonetheless, I would say that nonetheless, just to make the point here that there is some truth to what you're saying. Nonetheless, I would say that they were extremely generally speaking, quote unquote, negroid, right? Skull
Right.
structurally. However,
Okay.
you, that has nothing to do with skin color. Skin color going being at that region in that high altitude of an Arctic region, by default, I'm not saying that they would have been pale skin. Okay, that's exactly what Brandon was trying to explain to Kundalini, is the fact that they wouldn't necessarily have been pale skin like you or I,
But they were
right?
brown skinned people.
Right. Well, my point is that they wouldn't necessarily have been pale skin, but the level of light skin brown would have it could have been very high. Um, a very high degree of being light skinned, just because of the fact that while they are inhabiting these subarctic regions that high up for thousands of years. We're talking about thousands of years of nomad hunter gathering. There is no pyramids here. There is no spaceships. None of that. We're talking about nomad hunter gathering populations, and as they are making their way through these regions, their phenotypes are starting to change, which is why by the time they get to the Americas, you have some populations that were uh, proto-mongoloid. A proto-mongoloid skull structure is an in-between negroid to classic mongoloid that we would see today. And so that simply means that the skull structure would have been more robust. But at that point, any counterpart to them, any kin that would have been in Africa, is going through the exact same adaptations uh, for relative to their environment, though, in the context of, so they're going through adaptations themselves, but they are adaptations that are peculiar to their environment. So everybody's still looking diverse and different from each other because they are inhabiting different regions. And that is how we know that a, an, an ancestor to modern day West Africans would not have been the same guy that it would have been walking around in Northeast Asia at the time. You know what I'm saying? And then to support this hypothesis or this outlook, this model, we thank God that we are able to extract the genes of these ancient skeletons, compare them to modern populations around the world, and we do indeed see a continuity, a genetic continuity between Asian populations as a whole. So we know that they are all related to each other, regardless of their
These Asian
phenotypes.
populations are all related to each other.
Yes, yes, in one way or another. So, for example, the Australian lineage is they label it haplogroup C, so it's the letter C, right? And regardless of their phenotypes, they are still related to Mongolians, who you can obviously see that they look completely different from them, right? But if you were to judge by phenotypes, you would think that the Mongolian would be closer to the Japanese or the Chinese. You see what I'm saying? Which they are. I mean, contemporarily speaking, like as far as when those phenotypes came into existence, uh, they were within the same time frame. how, but genetically, like the specific genetic line that they
Yeah,
descend from.
because
So wait. But before we go any deeper,
Yeah, yeah.
you're basically saying that these people, these Siberians, 12,000 years ago, you're not doubting the fact that they were Negroid people.
No, I'm saying that they were the people that were
They were
crossing
light
into the
skinned.
Amer-. Well, no, I mean their skull structure. Oh, so okay, at 45, and I said the reason why I said 45,000 years ago is because there's an actual specific skeleton that I have in mind that was actually found in Siberia or Russia. I think either one. Well, yeah, it was found in North Asia, and it was 45,000 years ago. It was his lineage was the same as it was haplogroup K, which is like the Aeta people of Southeast Asia, which are the Aboriginal population there in the Philippines. And so they were related to them, right? And
Let,
so,
let, let me ask you something. Where are the
right,
Eskimos? What land do the Eskimos inhabit?
Eskimos is a broad term for any Arctic indigenous
So
population.
you would say that that Siberians could be referred to as Eskimos.
Yeah, related. Yeah, I mean,
Okay, there's
anthropologically,
Eskimos,
yeah.
bro, that are darker, that are about the same skin tone as Samadhi, and they live in these cold climates.
No, no, no. Hold on. They're not that dark. They're not that
There,
dark.
there, I have seen videos of these people gathering fish being just as dark as Samadhi.
they're
Well,
not
okay.
that dark.
I'm
They're
not
They're
pushing.
dark,
not. They're
but
See,
not.
we're saying light skin. We're saying light skin. I've seen videos of these people on National Geographic, bro, being
Right, right,
dark
right, right.
skinned.
Yes, and I can explain that. I can explain that. But hold on. So
Dealing with
first,
dietary choices, you can
first,
explain that.
exactly.
Okay. So
Yeah,
what's the dietary choice when it comes to these Siberians that is different from
seafood.
the dietary choice when it comes to these Eskimos that I'm referring to?
Siberia. No, well, they're all relatively similar populations. They're all Arctic populations, and they okay. So
What
some,
region would you like the people that I'm talking about?
right.
These people live. Would you agree that they live in Arctic areas?
Yeah, yeah, of course. Yeah.
And these people, you will sit here and agree with me that these people are a lot darker than me and you.
Yeah. Well, I don't know about
Definitely, bro.
how. Yeah. Well, I would say they're darker, and they were able to maintain their darkness by vitamin D rich diets like
like fish.
like seafood. Yes,
Yes.
seafood and stuff like that. Now we don't know. These are blankets. We don't know the specific scenario of why another population may have lost pigmentation. So, for example, we don't know if 20,000 years ago, right? They could have been more dedicated to hunting big game, which actually, yeah, a lot of them were actually. If they're going around hunting mammoth, saber tooth tigers, whatever it is that they're hunting, and that's not necessarily as high in vitamin D, um, as high in vitamin D, right? So you could picture any scenario where some populations might lose a certain degree, a certain level of pigmentation, while another pocket, a small pocket, may have maintained it simply because they stood by a very strong regimen of seafood, for example,
Pretty
right?
much, we don't know what we don't know what specific environmental pressures allowed them to maintain, because it's a when you're talking about genetics, you're talking
We don't
about,
know exactly what environmental pressures allowed them to maintain their dark skin.
right,
Well,
like it like we know for a fact, like that vitamin that the seafood diet was part of it,
Preserve melanin.
but that
right,
helped them
yeah.
retain their melanin. But when it comes to genes, it's like a crab. It's like a crapshoot. We don't know what specific other
Genes,
factors
yeah.
contribute to them maintaining their melanin.
So
Given
when it
given the
comes to
fact that
are you aware of the Siberians diet?
Well, the Siberians, like Hans said, they had to have had a similar diet too, because they're all these populations are all related to each other. They all have like a common ancestor with each other.
These
So we
people eat
know,
foods that are also very high in vitamin D, because if you study these people dietary choices, they rarely even eat meat that's cooked. They eat raw flesh and they drink blood. This is a fact. Like they still do that to this
I
day.
wouldn't
And
say
they
specifically Siberians, like
Yeah, I've seen a video of Mongolians doing that.
like Mongolians. I
no,
know,
Yeah.
Siberians do as well. There's a video of not archaeologists, but people that travel the world and get certain tribes on films that are nomadic. There's a video of them sitting down with these people and drinking blood from an animal and eating raw flesh.
well, yeah, like because Mongolians live a pastoral lifestyle. Well, the ones that don't live in the city, I personally know Mongolians. I wrestle with these guys, and
Okay.
they live a pastoral lifestyle. Like they're born herding sheep and goats and lambs and things of that nature. They're not really into technology. They live in their huts.
Yeah, they're
So
very
that
yeah,
makes
okay.
sense culturally. Yeah, it makes sense that, but that's not just specific to those people. The Bedouins of Iraq do the same thing too. They live also a pastoral lifestyle.
Yeah, but it's a known fact that in the Yamal Peninsula of Siberia, these people which are Siberians eat like this, and their foods are rich in vitamin D,
Right, right. But see that's a condition to again. We
and
don't
they
know
do
the
eat
full.
fish.
We right, right, and that's the condition to date. But we don't know the full
Right,
spectrum, the
like the,
full
the
history.
spectrum.
Back then, of
Every
course, we
Well, what
don't.
would be
But
a
pivot.
again,
good question
we
that
can't
allows us.
sit here and say that 12,000 years ago these people weren't dark. You see what I'm
No,
saying?
what we're saying here
Oh
Because
is
there
well,
are
yeah, 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 yeah.
these Siberians are part
But
of the Eskimo, group.
right,
There's
right,
you
right,
can look at Eskimos that are dark,
right.
okay. I'll go back and correct myself. Maybe not as dark as Samadhi, because that brother is very dark skinned, but they are dark skinned, like you would see a dark skinned Hispanic person. They are very dark skinned. They are dark skinned for being what they are. They are not
Right.
light skinned. You can't sit here and
well,
call them light skinned people, because
well,
you
some
could
people
go
are.
on
It depends.
you could go on
Yeah.
YouTube and type in these Eskimos gathering fish, and these people have dark pigmentation.
Right, but it depends on the population of Eskimos we're talking about, because like Hunter said, like it depends what Eskimo is a broad term. It's a broad encompassing term to describe these people.
Exactly.
And there are people that
But
are a
these
type
people
of
live in.
that skin
But see, the thing that binds them together is their living conditions. Like
yeah.
Hun said, they're Atlantic people.
Well, yes, because culturally they had to adapt to the cold environmental pressures of where they wound up being at. But
Exactly. And we
what I'm
could
saying
see through
specifically,
their dietary choices that they eat a lot of the same things with
yeah.
high in vitamin D.
But no, it was high in vitamin D. But my whole point, like I just want to wrap my whole point with that is like it depends on we need to be very specific what group we're talking about, because there are groups who were
Well, I'm
able.
talking about Siberians and I'm talking about the Eskimos. I'm not referring, I don't know exactly what group they are, but I know that you know of the Eskimos I'm talking about that are dark skinned.
There are
Right.
Eskimos that are
Sounds
of the dark
good.
skin
That's
variety,
what I'm
but then
saying.
there are Eskimos that are pale too. So the whole point
Exactly.
is
But
we don't know.
the dietary choices dealing with the Siberians and the people I'm dealing with are basically synonymous, because they eat high amounts of fish, and the the Siberians eat a lot of raw flesh and blood, which is high in vitamin D and high in a lot of nutrients because you're not cooking it. You
Right,
feel what I'm
right,
saying?
right, 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 right.
So
That's
going back
But
13,000 years ago with these people, bro, we cannot sit here and say that they were the same as they look today. We cannot sit here and say that. And you could look up Siberian people, bro. There's people in Siberia that have nappy hair, really nappy hair. I'm not talking about curly. I'm talking about nappy hair. They don't have
no,
the
there
koi
is
sand.
I,
not.
There's people in Siberia that have nappy hair.
Indigenous, indigenous people to Siberia that have nappy hair.
Exactly.
There is not.
Exactly.
Who? Let's pause and let's Google this. Who are you talking about? What
I'm no,
people?
I'm just saying,
What
like
would have?
you could go on you can go on Google, right? It's not
Yes,
hard to find, and
right.
you could
Go
find this
Google.
woman that's a trans Siberian, and she's sitting down with with an attire that looks very like native. and this woman's hair is standing up. She has very nappy
Okay,
hair.
so let me ask you a question. Would you be able to tell the difference between a Siberian and an Ainu?
And Ainu, break that, educate me on Ainu.
All right, for example, because and this is what I was trying to explain to Kundalini yesterday when he was talking about them. The Ainus are people who are descendants also from a group of Siberians, a group, because again, Siberia is huge, and within Siberia you have different ethnic groups. It's not a monolithic term.
Yeah, yeah, I know what you're
It
saying.
doesn't describe everybody. And just to piggyback to the point I was trying to make earlier, when we're talking about the Eskimos, you're going to see variety even amongst individuals. Not everybody has the same genetics. You're going to see a different amount of variety. So some people might be able to retain their dark pigmentation. Other people weren't, and we're not sure what environmental pressures caused what. For some
And
people
we're
to
not
have
sure whether or not these nappy-headed people were the ones in Siberia that came here either. You know
but
what I'm
what's
saying?
the proof?
I'm
But what's the
gonna
proof?
be a wise man, and I'm gonna sit here and not doubt what you're saying. But you should also be wise and not doubt what I'm saying, because what we're talking about right now is possibilities about
Well,
something
But I'm
that is
asking.
that's why I
13,000
didn't want
years
to.
ago.
I didn't want to go into the Ainu. Let's not go into the Ainu, bro. What are these people that you are claiming? Who are they that you are claiming are indigenous to Siberia and have nappy hair? Who? What is their
I
name?
don't exactly know what group they belong to, but I could tell you right now, if you type in
Uh-huh.
Black Siberians, you will find a woman sitting down with her indigenous attire, with her tribal attire, with nappy hair.
But bro, this
And
is
that, and
exactly
That
why I brought up
I
the
found
Ainu.
many
Look,
um no no
this is
no
why I brought up the Ainu though, because I wanted to know
Buryats.
to tell the
You ever heard
difference
of the Buryats
between
people?
Ainu and a Siberian,
You
because
ever heard
there
of the
are
Buryats
people.
people?
What's up?
The Buryat, no, my bad. Go ahead, go ahead.
No. I'm saying like I wanted to know if you knew the difference between the Ainu and the Siberian, because if you're going based on looker shit, Ainu people descend from Siberians. They have a common ancestor in Siberia that migrated to the Sakhalin Islands and wound up in Hokkaido, which is the coldest region in Japan. So that's
Okay.
why I'm asking if you know the difference between how an Ainu would look like and how an ancestral Siberian would look like, because they Ainus are a splinter group. So would you know the difference between these two groups?
No,
Because
I wouldn't, because to be honest, I didn't know what Ainu was until you said it. But to answer, I think it was Hunt's question or your question earlier, the Pacific tribe that this woman is from, or clan that this woman's from, is the Buryat people in Siberia.
so
Buryat
if you're
people.
claiming, all right, so then Google the Blaria
How do you spell that? How do you
see how
spell
they
that?
look.
Buryat. And I'm not saying all of them have nappy hair. I'm saying this specific woman has nappy hair.
Okay,
Okay.
because the
And
reason I brought up the Ainu was because there are people who will look at pictures of the Ainus from like the 1800s and shit and assume that they had like nappy hair and things of that nature when their hair
I'm
would.
not assuming this. This is a woman, right? Right. I'm looking at her picture.
Okay, so like he's gonna Google the picture and then we're gonna
I
see
just
like,
did. Can you guys see my screen? You guys should be able to see my
yeah, we
screen.
can see it.
Where is
Well, I
it a
mean,
black and white picture or is it a colored picture? Because all I see are
Look,
colored
bro.
pictures.
Can you go on Facebook at the same time that you're on here?
I cannot go on Facebook. No.
Are you on a laptop?
Yeah, but my account on Facebook is restricted. Period. I cannot log into Facebook at all.
Okay. Hmm, I'm trying to figure, because I'm not making this up. I'm looking at this woman right now. Hmm,
Right. I mean,
I'm trying to.
can you post it in the chat? I think we have the chat in here. Yeah, if you can post it in the chat
yeah, like
so we
post
can
it in
see
the
it.
chat.
Okay, hold on. I'm about to download this image. Hold on, hold on. I'm about to download this image and post it in the chat. Okay, boom. Go back to the chat. Okay, now you go to the message. Okay. It's not letting me post a picture on here. I mean, it has the
Is it a black and white one? Because I'm looking at a black and white picture right here.
Yeah, it's a black and white picture, but I'm not referring to skin pigment. I'm referring to the hair because
Right, to the hair. Right, right,
said
right.
a girl said a girl said you I don't know exactly what she said, but she like asked, or as you said, you can't find somebody with nappy hair in Siberia, or you can't sit here and say that the ones who crossed over the Bering Straits had nappy hair, which were Siberians. But I found a woman that was Siberian with nappy hair, and she didn't look like she was mixed with any, you know, what we would say like African blood, like black blood. You know what I mean? Dealing with her
Right.
phenotype, but she
You're saying
has nappy hair.
somebody, or is you saying it?
Well, what was the source of this picture?
Well, from the looks of it, I see Pinterest.
That's
Um,
exactly what I'm talking about. Are you seeing the photo that I'm talking about with this woman with nappy hair?
I'm seeing it. Yeah, are you seeing it, Khalid?
Let me see. You
And
had it on for a
so,
second and then it went off. Okay, yeah, now I see it.
Okay, this the photo I'm talking about. Now, when it gets down to this, we cannot sit here and say that the ones who came here 13,000 years ago from Siberia dealing with the Bering Strait theory did not look like this and were not darker than this, because as I showed you that there's like you broke it down how dealing with the dietary choices it preserves people's melanin, and due to the fact that these people are in high climates with in an Atlantic environment, that this can't be possible. But that's we can't say that because the people that I'm referring to are very dark skinned people for the people that they are, and they have the same dietary choices as the Siberians. And like I said, there's a lot of vitamin D in raw meat and in blood that these people drink and have been drinking for thousands of years. So we can't sit here and say this, you know what I'm saying? And this is only one side to my whole point of I why I you know what I mean lean on the fact that the first people to come here were black people. Because as I broke it
right,
down, the most ancient inhabitants of Asia were black people. Period. No one could go against that.
right.
That's factual. There's that it's not just photo, it's not just link. There's literal videos of people doing field work in these jungle environments throughout East Asia, talking and sitting down with these dark skinned Asian people with nappy hair, more darker than the Khoisan. Okay.
Okay, well, where
And
is this video from? These are very specific claims.
I mean, I'm pretty sure you guys have seen these
No,
videos.
I
You
have
could
not
find
seen
them. No,
uh
check this out.
Northeast
You could
Asians with
find all
nappy
these
hair.
videos. Well, bro, like okay, would you say Cambodian people or Asiatic people?
Because look, yeah, yeah, okay, but that's Southeast Asia. That's another monster. We can go into Southeast Asia.
Cambodia, right?
Correct, but that's again,
Okay,
okay.
but the
Let me
Cambodians
be
will tell
specific
you
because
that their ancestors were black. They
okay,
will tell you that.
okay, and
That comes out of their
that's
mouth.
okay, but and that's South Asia, bro. Do you know?
That's
Like
what I'm saying.
I know South
Listen to what I'm
Asia.
saying. The most ancient inhabitants of Asia you could find begin in Southeast Asia, period.
Okay, what is your point with that? What is your
My point is, where okay, can you tell me where the Siberians come from prior to them being in Siberia?
Of course, everybody, since everybody comes from Africa, they
I'm no,
actually
that's not. I'm dealing with Asia. Where did they come from before Asia? All life in Asia began in the East, and it spread out. I'm not saying not in the term began like coming about like we would say in Africa,
no,
but
no,
I'm
no, no, no.
saying
There was a migration path through Central Asia as well. Not
exactly.
everything
But
went
I'm
through
saying the most
Southeast Asia. There
ancient
was
people you could find are in Southeast Asia. The most ancient artifacts you can find are in Southeast Asia. And these people will tell you that their
okay,
ancestors were black. And you
okay,
Siberian people, what?
okay, and
What I'm telling you, bro, is for you to sit here and say that the first inhabitants of America weren't black people with nappy hair, it's
uh-huh.
very unwise.
No, no,
It's
no,
not
no.
wise.
Hold on. Let me tell you why it is not unwise. Is because there is a gap there between Southeast Asia and the Americas. There is Northeast Asia to go through, and these people went through there for tens of thousands of years. And in order, instead of us going into the demographics and the skeletal evidence, ancient skeletal evidence, and everything that we know about Northeast Asia, you just want to skip through that and don't talk about it
No,
at
no, no,
all.
no,
Let's
no,
just
no, no,
let's
no,
just
no, no, no. I'm not skipping through that, bro. My bottom line when I brought that up is the
uh-huh.
most, bro. The ancient people on the only part that people really argue about is the Americas, but anywhere else, bro, the
Mhm.
ancestors of that landmass are black people.
Okay, okay,
Period.
okay, okay. Now
The most oldest civilizations on this planet are black
need
people.
right, right. No, not civilizations. Okay, see, you got your
Are black
timelines.
people. I
Listen,
will say
bro. Listen,
civilizations
listen.
and people.
No,
Hold
listen.
on. One
You
at a
have your
time.
timelines. You have your timelines all fucked up. On one hand, you're talking
I'm
about
not speaking about
Paleolithic.
timelines. Do you hear me giving you dates?
You said civilizations. There is no civilization at most. If you want to consider like Göbekli Tepe at 11,000 BCE a civilization, well, guess what? Even if you consider that, which was not, there's no evidence that it was
I'm
that
saying
they
the
had no
oldest
standing armies.
civilizations on this planet are of black people.
Okay,
And if you can
and by
give me a civilization
do,
that's older than black people, then you better give it up right now because you can't.
brother, the Sumerians were not black. Okay, the Sumerians were not black.
I'm not even gonna get into that, but the Sumerians do not predate Kemet or
Yes,
Nubia.
they do. Yes, they
No,
do.
they don't.
The
Yes, they do.
Sumerians,
Because like
the
I
hold
just
on, let me
said
jump into this
earlier,
real quick.
like I
The
just said
Sumerians,
earlier, the
hold
Heru
on, hold on,
Imhotep predates
hold on,
back
bro.
20,000 years to even
The
further than that.
Sumerians and the Phoenicians, both those groups predate
Wait,
Kemet
wait, 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 wait. My
both
brother wants to say something. Go ahead, say it.
by at least 15, at least
Civilization
2,000 years.
predates that.
Wait, brothers. Listen to what my brother has to say. Say it, Matt.
Somebody mentioned Sumeria, right?
Yes.
Okay, let's deal with facts. Linguistically, Sumeria is a French word. So
Okay,
what was
pseudo,
the
pseudo.
civilization
Shut
called
that
before
nigga
that?
down.
No, no, no,
Okay,
no, no,
shut
no.
that
Don't
nigga
bring that stuff
down.
up and don't bring disrespectful up because you talking to an elder right now.
Linguistically, Mesopotamia is a Greek word. So what was that region called before that?
Okay, let me address this. Let me address this, please.
And let me
Okay,
ask you
go
something,
ahead.
hun.
See,
Let me
see
ask
what
you
y'all,
something,
Let
hun.
me
this is what
address his
y'all need to
his
understand.
Let
methodology.
me ask you something, hun.
Uh-huh.
5,000 years ago, what empire was Mesopotamia a part of?
Okay, before I answer that, let me respond to that pseudo ass methodology he just tried to run with right there.
No,
Okay?
because you don't understand that before writing, there was language,
No,
and
you
that's why
let me
linguistics is
tell
so important.
brother,
Listen,
you
that's
don't
not
understand.
genetics,
You don't
bro.
understand what Matt is doing right now. Okay, that's like saying what language is does Native American come from? Native American is English, right? Therefore, the
Well, let
Native
me tell you
Americans
something. No,
were
no,
English
let me
people.
tell you something
That's
because you're
retarded,
literally
bro.
sitting here saying that Mesopotamia predates Nubia. And I'm
Okay,
about to
okay,
prove you wrong because
but his approach to
what
evidence
empire
counters
was,
that.
let me tell you something, brother. What empire was Mesopotamia a part of 5,000 years BC?
We can respond.
Answer that question.
Listen. I can respond to that, but
Can you answer that question, please?
there was no empire per se.
The Nubian Empire
No,
had
no.
Mesopotamia in
Nubia
its
does
ruling.
not.
That's a fact.
No, it is
The
not.
Sudan, the Arabian Peninsula, all of Egypt, and Mesopotamia had Nubia in its empire. That's a fact.
Mesopotamia historically today Mesopotamia we know is modern day Iraq, and I've been there, and I'm gonna tell you this
Facts.
facts. I'm gonna tell you this: Mesopotamia historically had more to do with the Achaemenid Empire, the Persian Empire of Cyrus. It was never under control of Nubians. You are
Ever,
That you
completely
can't
wrong.
say that. You can't
ever.
I
say
know
that
that for a
because
fact.
it's a
I dare
historical
someone
fact
to
that
take
Nubia 5,000 years ago
Based
had its
on what?
reaches throughout
Based on what?
Mesopotamia
Based
based on
on what?
based on
Based on what?
facts.
Based on
Based on
what facts?
facts.
Based on what facts? Okay?
Bro,
Because let
based
me
on the
tell you
facts
something.
that you could date
Matt's
things,
Matt's
based on the facts
attempt
that you could
right
read
now
scripts
was pseudo as
throughout,
hell.
such as the
That shit was
coffin
Let
super
me
text.
pseudo.
let me ask y'all a
Go
question.
ahead, go ahead.
A civilization, doesn't it consist of a culture, correct?
Okay, yeah.
A little
I'm
bit more than
asking.
that. A
No,
little bit
no,
more than that.
they said
A little bit
okay.
more than that. A little bit
It's
more than
on
just
culture,
culture.
religion,
That's a
food,
Oh,
That's not what
language.
he's
okay,
saying. He's not limiting other things.
so my point is this right here. How can you say Sumeria? You don't hear about culture prior to Sumeria. We just gonna go by what y'all saying. You don't hear about cultures in that region prior to Sumeria, right? Sumeria is like the first civilization that starts over there, correct?
Based upon what y'all saying.
Based on what y'all saying, correct?
There is culture. What there wasn't was more complex things.
I'm just asking you a question. Can you answer the question? Yes or no?
Well,
based on what y'all saying,
your premise is
Sumeria is like the oldest culture in the world. Based on what y'all saying, right?
No, not based on
civilization. They're saying it's the oldest civilization.
Not just culture. Culture can be
because you can have a culture and a culture intertwines with a civilization.
No,
but that does not necessarily.
He understands, brother. They talking about civilization.
Listen, family. I know the difference between culture and civilization.
Okay, then so then you will understand
why are you using the word culture? Use civilization.
I just asked y'all a simple question. You feel me? If you establish a civilization,
but you said culture, not civilization. You said
right?
Say it again, man.
There is culture. There is an input of culture in civilization, but it is not what ultimately makes a civilization a civilization. Civilizations have standing armies. Civilizations have agriculture. Civilizations have a lot more than just that.
I'm not saying y'all beating around the bush or none of that, but let's deal with facts. What comes first, culture or civilization?
We understand that cultures come first, they evolve first, and then they lead to
sophisticated.
I agree with that.
But it's so much more than that.
It's so much more than that. You can't just put it under culture, and that's blanket as hell. It's a blanket.
I just wanted y'all to answer a question because at the end of the day, you feel me? I could go through several cultures.
But we agree
that will blow Mesopotamia out the water, bro. And at the end of the day, people migrated over there.
Okay, well, no one's debating that people migrated over there and everywhere. No one's debating that. You asked a specific question.
I'm not debating that either. But somebody brought that up. You get what I'm saying?
No. What he brought up.
Hold on, because let's address.
I understand that. I'm a black man. You get what I'm saying? But I'm never biased when it comes to knowledge. You get what I'm saying? Because I kick everybody culture. You get what I'm saying? I just dropped something on bro Rashay the other night about the Mayans and the Cambodians, why their ruins are exactly identical.
They are not exactly identical.
I'm not biased when it comes to culture. You get what I'm saying? But my point is this right here. It's like these arguments be so bogus at the end of the day because all humans are connected. The only thing that makes us different is our pigment and different opinions, and we're culturally different. But humans are, at the end of the day, they connected. For us to even have culture, you get what I'm saying? We had to develop that shit.
Well, no one disagrees with that.
We went through stages of development. You get what I'm saying?
I'm not gonna
like we can't. Let me say something, fam. Let me say something.
No one is
saying
that culture is important and leads to civilizations. No one is debating that. But when we're talking about
let me bring about another thing about culture. And let me connect it to the Americas and Africa. You cannot sit here and tell me that it is a big ass coincidence that the pyramids that are in the Americas point directly to constellations that point to the same constellations that the pyramids do in Africa. You can't sit here and tell me that the cosmological stories about creation aren't identical to the cosmological stories of ancient Kemet dealing with.
Okay, so let me ask you
Nun
an
example.
I'll give you an example. Hold on. I'm gonna give you an example then. Since you wanna talk about like connections and how cultures have similarities.
Because it's not just one connection. You feel me? It's not one connection. It is more connections than my fingers could count.
But look, it's human psychology. You're going to have people. It's like that old term, monkey see, monkey do. It applies. Human psychology. You're going to see a lot of similarities between different cultures because.
But listen, this is what I'm saying. This is what I'm saying, sister. You are not about.
I gotta push back on what you're saying because you're trying to make the comparison between these pyramids and the constellations and the civilization in Kemet. When we understand that the civilization in Kemet, there's a lot of diversity and a lot of differences between any culture that you would find in Mesoamerica. I just want to bring up an example that because you see similarities between two cultures does not mean that they derive from one another
or that they have contact with each other.
That's something that I'm trying to show you, and I'm trying to explain this. Now let me break this down. The cosmological stories are basically identical to the way of how things came about and how things will come to an end. They're identical dealing with Egypt and South America. Now, you can't sit here and talk about, oh, these people just came to this land and in America and these people in Africa and they just built these pyramids. And these people had no idea about the pyramids in Africa, and these Africans had no idea about the pyramids in America. Okay, I will say this. In my opinion, that is unwise. That is very unwise. Because how the hell are you? Listen. Let's say this. Let's say you're in Africa, right? Let's say you're in Africa and I'm in America, right?
Okay. Yes.
You build pyramids to align with the constellation, right? And there's a whole reason behind this and a whole story behind this. And there's a cosmological connection to the stars and why it was happening. You are not about to sit here and tell me that I just came up with that shit on my own in America all by myself.
Why not?
And pointed these same pyramids, these same.
But you have to be able to answer the why and the how, bro.
Cosmological story.
You can have that premise.
You can't sit here and say that.
Why not? Why couldn't they have found a way to have something similar to a culture somewhere else?
So you're telling me the science of a pyramid is something that just can uniquely pop up in someone's mind without them knowing anybody else did it?
All over the world. So why not?
Exactly. That's my point. That's my point. And like Matt said, there's so much architecture throughout Cambodia that connects.
Can I say something?
Connection.
South America.
The connection.
Go ahead.
You have this blanket image of similarities all throughout the world, and you have not a single body, a skeleton, or an isolated indigenous population that would be foreign to that region. So you want to say the Egyptians were here, they were teaching shit, they were walking around all over the fucking place, and guess what? You don't have a skeleton, you don't have an Egyptian.
Like I said earlier, but what did I say earlier, and what did you agree on?
There's no such thing as a fucking Egyptian.
Okay, we're going with the semantics again. We're going with the semantics.
That's semantics because you know why we're saying
my God,
in the modern colloquial term. Let's not enter those word games.
Ain't no damn Egyptian, bro.
Bro, let's not enter those word games because
we're slow, bro. Like, why are we arguing with
listen.
I'm not arguing word games with you.
Yeah, listen, we're not here for that.
Like I said earlier, look, listen, man. You've been listening this whole time. Man. And earlier, you heard this brother Hun. You heard this brother Hun and this thing say earlier. You heard them say that we cannot 100% prove that we could take a skeleton and directly connect it to a people. Their geneticists admit that you cannot 100% do this. It's not.
No. There's levels of precision.
Both agree to this.
There's levels of precision.
And Hun's gonna sit here and say you can't find one skeleton and connect it to an ancestor in Egypt. Well, guess what, bro? Your geneticist will tell you to your face that it's not factual to do that.
Yes, look. I can break it down.
And the bottom line to this whole build is, bro, you cannot disprove the fact that the first inhabitants of this land were black. But then at the same time, I cannot sit here and bring you a body of facts and evidence that goes with your belief system that's going to make you see it as facts. So at the end of the day,
negative. The burden is on you because this is how burden of proof works. That's a fallacy. The burden of proof.
What's a fallacy?
That's a fallacy.
The prove a negative. You cannot prove a negative. You cannot prove a negative.
What's a fallacy though?
Your idea. That's a fallacy, bro. That's fallacy.
My idea is a fallacy. Now let me tell you something. Who backs up your idea as factual?
From ignorance, bro.
Who backs up your idea as factual?
Genetics, bro.
Answer this question, bro. Who identifies your idea as factual? Who proves it as factual? Is it you?
Genetics, the science of genetics.
Exactly. And that, listen, that methodology of that science of genetics that you're talking about is a white man's, and you
But you
cannot
don't
sit
have a
here.
methodology.
Hold on, let me finish. I will let y'all speak. I will let y'all
Hold
speak.
on, bro. You don't have a. That's why I asked. It
I
goes
will
back to
let
that
y'all
question
speak.
that I asked you earlier, bro. What is your methodology for determining that these people had kinky hair when they arrived into the Americas? What is the
Because
methodology?
you could go in Siberia and find people with kinky hair.
You have. What is the science based on what?
And let me can I ask a question?
Let Matt say something. Go ahead, bro.
Can I ask a question?
Go ahead, bro.
Are y'all studying references from a particular source that's not primary, but making that source is making references from an outside aspect about a culture, but isn't articulating the culture from the inside?
We're just talking about genetics, man. Like you on some other stuff, bro. We're talking about genetics, and we're talking about what the
I'm not on no other stuff, because from my understanding, you brought up Sumeria, right?
Yes.
He brought up Sumeria. I brought up Phoenicians.
No, correct. You brought up You brought up Sumerians, right?
Yes.
Okay.
100.
Okay. The culture didn't have nothing to do with genetics, right?
No. Yes, the genes were in a particular group of people.
This is what I'm saying, bro.
Right now, huh?
And he's gonna agree with what I'm saying, bro.
Bro,
listen. The thing that you're saying my idea is a fallacy, but the thing that backs up your idea is truth is not of something that comes from you. It's something that comes from your oppressor. Point blank. Period.
Matt was going to Matt. Listen, bro. Matt was going.
Let's not get emotional. Let's not get emotional towards the responses. The methodology that you guys are using to back up what you're saying as factual comes from a white man. Period.
Okay, then. So
Rick Kittles is not a white man, retard. Rick Kittles
sit here and say you cannot sit here and say the white man.
Our methodology comes from a white man, right? So not to cut you off, but I'm gonna push back on that because you're saying say
it again. Say it again. I didn't really hear you.
You're drawing blanket statements, and I just speak with straight facts. If you're saying that our methodology
with straight facts, when you straight facts can't even be 100% proven by the people that studied it,
what
give you these
methodology
facts.
are you using to arrive at your conclusions? I hope Mateo is listening to this, because I think everybody has common sense to understand that when the way you arrive at conclusions is through a methodology, through a certain science. What certain science are you specifically using that you can back up that proves your point? That's what you need to prove, and you're not proving that. That's why
particular methodology
he's going with
that I'm using.
Metaphysics.
Listen, you guys know my methodology.
Listen, for us to even understand each other, man, we gotta let each other talk, man. Like, for real. That's it sounds crazy. It sounds like a damn broken record, man. Let everybody talk one at a time so I can actually hear.
How about we start putting time limits? Hold on. How about we start putting time limits on these talks? Because it seems like every time me and the brother try to get a word in, this kid is over here making 10-minute long speeches. And as soon as we try to respond to the shit,
you are ashamed because we try to respond to you and you go to three different freaking topics when we're trying to
no, because within the first 30 seconds of what I'm saying, as soon as I say something that doesn't fit with your emotions, you guys blow up.
Okay, well, we're gonna start putting time limits.
Because I've been out of everybody, I've been like the most quiet, listening to everybody. So you know for a fact that's
facts. We're gonna have 2-minute time limits from now on. It's 58. So somebody go in and you got 2 minutes.
Okay, so someone go in. Go ahead.
Well, let me talk, because I was the least one that been talking. You feel what I'm saying? I just been listening. You know what I'm saying? All I need is like not even 3 minutes. My thing is this right here. How in the hell y'all get just people in general? You feel me? Because I used to do it too. How in the hell do we come to the conclusion that shit is factual if we getting information from our oppressor and not going into our own information? So you mean to tell me the oppressor got more knowledge and information than your own people have, right? when you dealing with their language and stuff.
Okay, can I answer that?
Because from my understanding, when you unlock, English is only limited to English. You get what I'm saying? And if a person, drown themselves in English and that's all they know, and you throw an ancient ass word at them that doesn't even belong to the English language system, they're gonna put their own English emphasis on that word. Correct?
Right.
So what I'm saying is this right here. Why not go into your own ancestor shit? Because your ancestors done told you who you were. We don't need the white man to tell us who we are. You get what I'm saying? Because the white man, he will tell you who you not or who you not. You get what I'm saying? He'll tell you everything else besides who you actually is. So why not go into your own people language? Because y'all all know and y'all all could agree with me. Man, our people in ancient times ain't dealing with no fucking genetics. We ain't dealing with this modern shit. Man, you got people eating out goddamn microwaves and shit, getting fucking tumors and shit in their head and shit from all that fucking radiation.
From all that technology.
But we love dabbling in this modern technology though. Well, that's all I want to say.
Okay. Now, I'll respond to that, and I think that's the way we'll do it. Like, Rashay can go next, and then
yeah, just tell me when you're done.
Yeah.
Okay.
So my response to the problem there is that the white man has become the straw man excuse to hide behind pseudoscience. So anytime that somebody attempts to approach you with proper methodology or how epistemology, how to know what we know, anytime certain data goes against your personal opinions or preconceptions of certain preconceived conclusions, you automatically toss the white man fallacy in there. Oh, that's white man this, white man that, white man, and we will never be able to have a conversation beyond that if the white man is going to be your excuse for every single conversation and topic in existence, especially when you are attributing essentially what science to be a monopoly under the white man, when science deals with the methodology and not necessarily the facts themselves. It has one side deals with the facts and the other, how do you arrive at those conclusions? And nobody, no race of people on earth has a monopoly on that methodology. You have black geneticists, black paleontologists, black evolutionary biologists, and you cannot continue to hide under ignorance. You cannot continue to say that because ancient people it didn't have certain technology and certain methodology, that because of that we should suspend our critical thinking skills and we should pause our brains and shut them off because they didn't do it, so we shouldn't. You see what I'm saying? We have to stop doing that. That happens all the time in every conversation in the wannabe woke community, quote unquote woke community. Everybody's so damn woke that everybody ends up with different conclusions because of faulty methodology.
That's that brother Han.
Okay. I can ask you a question, Han?
Yeah, absolutely.
When do a person come to the conclusion when pseudo is in effect in a debate?
Particularly with certain for starters fallacies, like for example, you create a straw man argument, an argument that nobody made, and you defeat that argument as if it had anything to do with the initial argument that the other person was making. There's that. There's all sorts of logical fallacies that you can point out to be the blueprint or the base of the pseudoness. But there's other layers on top, such as when you get to standards of evidence. So, for example, you're using colonial illustrations to say that this colonist depicted this Native American as looking black or negroid, okay, and then but you don't accept when we can show you that plenty of other colonists also depicted the Native Americans as looking Caucasian. So there's double standards of evidence. There's a compilation. There's a whole of different angles.
Whom is depicting these pictures though? Who are drawing these pictures?
Colonists. There's 16, 17, 18th century colonists.
Oh, so the only information we got is Europeans drawing pictures of what they seen, right?
No, that's not the only angle we can use. That's one angle, and my only argument is that that's a very poor standard of evidence. It's judging from what they drew.
So basically, when the pseudoism, when that shit is in effect, when a person is engaging in a conversation with another person, it only comes in effect when that particular person information ain't lining up with your information, correct?
That's a fact.
When it is what? I'm sorry. Can you repeat that again?
Coming from a cultural perspective, right?
No, say that again. He didn't hear you.
Say it again.
Pseudo.
Okay, when pseudo is in effect,
right?
When you're engaging in a conversation, say you articulating your culture, talking layman terms. Say you articulate your culture from your culture, right? Mm-hmm. And the person that you engage in a conversation with is saying something in reference to your culture, but not lining up with your information from your culture. So that's pseudo, right? If his information ain't lining up with your information,
using that mentality, you're right and exact. That would be pseudo.
No. What information specifically are we talking about? If one person has a certain set of ideas and the other person has...
I'm using the example, right? And I'll talk slow as possible. Say I'm a Chinese man, right?
Right.
And for example, I say, well, Genghis Khan is my ancestor.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? And I say, oh, the tribe that I come from, my Asian tribe, derives from these Mongols. You get what I'm saying?
Right. You're talking about the same person saying that his ancestor was Genghis Khan and also a Mongol?
Listen, just say I'm a relative. Just say I'm a Chinese person, right?
Right.
For example. And I'm saying, oh, my tribe derived from Genghis Khan.
Right.
Yeah. And I present all my information from my culture to prove that, right?
Okay, there's a caveat there. What information? What type of information?
No. Just listen to the example. Don't take what he's saying as literal. It's metaphor. Because obviously he's not a Chinese man.
But there's
obviously he didn't come from Genghis Khan. You know what I mean?
Okay, listen. Fuck the Genghis Khan shit, right? just say me and you, Han, are having a conversation, right?
Right.
If you say 2 + 2 is 4.
Perfect.
And I'll be like, oh, 2 + 2 is 1. I just split it in half. I just split that whole in half and made 2 parts. So if my shit is not lining up with your shit from you articulating from your culture, then that would make my argument pseudo opposed to yours.
Exactly.
Correct.
That's all I'm saying, brother.
Exactly.
Right.
And let me touch on that if I can.
And what was the point of that though? What was
I'm gonna break it down. I'm gonna break it down.
No, because I want Matt to be able to explain his own point, not
okay,
you.
What was the point of that, man?
What was the point of
that? Break it down to the purpose of why that was said.
My point is this right here. When you use references coming from a European source and acting upon if it's like the primary, and then another person is using a European source, you feel me, to debate the European source that you put up in reference to your culture, then both of y'all pseudo. Because at the end of the day, like 95% of people are using pseudo-ass references at the end of the day. They're not articulating shit from their culture.
I'm sorry, but that was
the references, they give descriptions of their culture.
Okay, can I respond to that? I mean, it was. I'm a little bit. That was a little bit incoherent with the point, because the reason why even when you started off giving that example of the Chinese man saying that he came from Genghis Khan, that's the reason why I wanted for you to expound on, okay, what type of information are we talking about? We have to be specific about what type of information we were talking about, even though it was an example.
It doesn't, hon. It doesn't have to be.
No, listen to what I'm saying. Listen to what I'm saying.
Sophisticated in general, it was just an example.
No, I understand that.
Hold on. I can feel where this is going.
Listen,
and it ain't going nowhere that's going to be able to allow us to understand each other.
The reason why I asked that, what kind of information was it, is because it's important. Now, notice how I didn't ask you for what type of information it was when you were talking about math, because that's something that any viewer right now who's watching this can articulate for themselves. They can process that information because it's very specific. And so, but that does not align. That type of example does not align with blanket statements about, well, because your source is a white man,
let me say
we can't use it. And there's a hypocrisy there too.
My example did I really didn't ask for a right or wrong question. It was just an example.
Let me say something, Matt.
Right.
All right. So when it comes down to it, this is all he's saying. We could only see things. What we understand is based off what we can see. Okay? And what we can allow ourselves to see as truth. Bottom line. So what he's saying is what I'm saying. And this is, he will say this. This is what it really comes down to. You're saying that the methodology of genetics is what makes things factual on your side of the table, okay? I'm saying my methodology of corresponding cultures together and seeing the significant synonymous ways that they have with each other is what makes what I'm saying true. Also, what makes what I'm saying is true is the fact that these land masses are closer together than the land masses you're saying people started from and traveled here and became the first civilization. So when it really comes down to it, the only reason why I will ever say what you're saying is pseudo is because it's not going right with what I see. Because like I said, I could only see from my understanding and you could only see from your understanding. See, the problem I have with your understanding is the methodology that is making what you're speaking as 100% factual. Mm-hmm. See, you are using technology that is created by a white man.
Again, with the white man.
Hold on. I'm about to cap on it. You about to hear what I'm about to say. Listen, what you're using is a European's science dealing with this particular methodology of genetics. Now, you cannot sit here and act like the white man, ever since he discovered our people, didn't come up with an agenda to destroy our history, to ruin our history, and to hide it from us and from each other. You can't sit there and say that's not correct.
Can I jump into this real quick?
Go ahead.
Sure.
I'm just gonna jump into this real quick. I want to address something that both of them said, Mateo and this cat. So you're saying that you have a problem with the methodology because you feel that because you feel like it's white man's. Well, then you're following.
It's not just because it's a white man.
But that's mainly
that's the central point. You keep going back to that.
I'm gonna tell you why, though. I'm gonna tell you why. The reason why I have a problem with it is because I understand that the white man.
And then you can rebuttal.
I apologize.
You're good. Let me just get into my point, because you're saying that based on your methodology, your perspective, you don't feel like it equates to what you see. But at the same time, are you willing to admit that you can be limited by your perspective? You could be limited by things that you don't know, and therefore you draw baseless conclusions based on things that you can't put together because you lack certain amount of.
Hold on. Let her finish.
And I actually agree with that, bro.
I agree with that too.
You feel me? Everybody ain't right all the time.
Exactly.
Bro. This is why we on this shit, bro, trying to learn from each other and study, bro, and enhance our learning, bro. At the end of the day, because guess what? If we had this truth, and we had all the knowledge in the world, and we were always correct, it wouldn't even be no point of researching shit.
I agree with that, but I agree with that. But
trying to understand somebody else because we already understand everybody.
But I agree with that. Nobody has all 100% the information, but there is a certain standard that we have to adhere to when we're deciphering evidence. Would you agree to that? And if you're limited by your own perspective because you're missing certain amount of information, then it goes back to my question that I asked Rashay earlier. Which methodology?
You heard your key word. You heard your key word, huh? You heard the key word in what you said?
It's the methodology, bro.
No, the key word was information, bro. So guess what? When information is presented from whomever side, we have to keep in mind to have an open mind about it and not be closed-minded and just write that shit out. Because a lot of us don't even research what the next person be saying.
Hold on, bro. Hold on. Because you're saying the key word is information, but how do you get to information? How do you get there?
Hold on, Matt. Hold on, Matt. She's saying something.
How do you get
your argument is methodology. You feel me? The methodology is application.
The methodology is important, right? And if you're
conclusion from different angles, right? That's what methodology is. If it's ontology, if it's geographical, if it's anthropological, I understand what you're saying, bro.
Okay, then. So then let me ask this then. If you understand what I'm saying, then you'll understand what the problem we have with you guys and why we say that you guys are pseudo.
Listen, you keep saying you guys. You keep saying you guys. Listen, I'm not your enemy, bro. And I'm one person. And I can only speak for myself. You get what I'm saying? So what is let's address it right now, bro. What is your problem with Matt? You feel me? Because I stand on my own feet, my own truth. So what is your problem?
Bro, you can spit look. You can spit whatever you want to spit. That's on you. But at the end of the day, what I care about is the methodology. Hold on. I don't need you to get emotional, man. I don't need you to get emotional. I'm just gonna make my point, and then you can say whatever you want.
Wait. She's gonna make her point. She's gonna make her point, and then she's gonna let you go on.
Mind you was the one that said that we should take turns, right? So you should be following what you're saying. Am I right or am I right, brother? So you should follow what you say.
That's why I asked you. Could I ask you a question? Correct. So I did
my whole thing. No, of course, but I'm not disrespecting you. When I'm saying you guys, I'm saying for those who are in the chat here. I'm not disrespecting you. I could be disrespectful, but I'm not disrespecting you. I'm just saying for those.
Let's keep it real. Let's keep it real. Let's keep it real though. Let's keep it real though. You have disrespected me in the past, bro.
No, this isn't Hun. This isn't Hun.
Agree to that? I'm just gonna make my point. Our only issue with people who adopt their own certain standards or methodologies is that you are susceptible to confirmation bias. You can lead to your own conclusion and your own biases. There's not a strict standard of methodology that you're using to get
brother, I agree with you 100% because people do it all the time.
I'm just asking, what is the methodology you use to get to your conclusions? What is it?
What is my methodology?
What is it?
I don't have a problem with genetics because I let somebody in that field do that. You get what I'm saying?
But you say
genetics is my own lane. You feel me? So my methodology when I study, my whole application is linguistically and etymology and geographical and anthropological. You get what I'm saying? And also keeping in mind. You feel me? People speak figuratively. They speak metaphorically. You get what I'm saying? So you gotta have an open mind where a person is coming from.
Right. I think if I could jump in here.
Go ahead, bro.
Yeah. Like okay. So throughout time, there the as science advances and different disciplines are developed. Standards get higher and higher and higher and higher, and for good reason, and that's a good thing. That's not a bad thing. Like, so for example, before the 1800s, there was no science per se. There was no catalog. I would say there was no differences in phenotypes and in how you look and how I look were noted, but there wasn't necessarily a catalog of these features And so there was not necessarily no science of craniometry before the 1800s. If anything, I may be mistaken, maybe somewhere around the 1700s, but I know for sure by the 1600s and earlier than that. Okay.
I agree with you, brother. You right. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
classifications with phenotypes and all that, with hue and all that, you know what I'm saying? That's Blumenbeck and all them people. You get what I'm saying? So yeah, that's you like you around the right area, bro. 1800s, 19th century, yeah, during the Reconstruction period. I understand
Right.
what you're saying.
Somewhere around that time period, and then prior to the 1600s, the dominant um, quote unquote science. I mean, it wasn't a science. There was no science, but it was colorism. So anybody a shade darker than the European, they would label more. They would label more specifically. Also, if you were Islamic, right? But there were instances where they would simply call you Negro, regardless of your skull structure and your facial features. Okay, so for example, a Polynesian. Okay, and I know I know you guys might want to debate into do they have black? Okay, but because I know that demographic very well, but I'll pick somebody very specific so that we won't go there. Try a modern Filipino or a person from Taiwan who is Austronesian. These are the people that eventually became the Polynesians of Southeast Asia. Okay, so that we won't have any mistakes between who's Aboriginal, who's not. But anyway, a Taiwanese person who is Mongoloid, clearly Mongoloid. Okay, you're not about to say that he's Negro or anything like that, right? But they potentially with the 1600s standards, they could potentially simply label him a Negro simply because he was darker and without any consideration for his morphology whatsoever. Okay, then in the 1800s, because of all the international travel, everybody essentially cataloged everybody. So Southeast Asians were cataloged, Native Americans were cataloged, and so on and so forth. And so that's where this science of craniometry came about, where distinctions were made, archetypes were made around the regions of the earth where they concentrated at. So in West Central Africa, the archetypical skull structure there they labeled Congoid, right? In South Africa, the archetypical skull structure there for the Khoisan type people that are hunter gatherers is Capoid, right? And in North Africa, Northeast Africa, and Europe, it is Caucasoid, right? And then you have Mongoloids, and then in Australia you have Australoids, right? And so that became the standard in the 1800s. The problem with that became later, once we understood populations better, was that it was further understood that within any given of these regions, these are just blanket skull morphologies that dominate in a particular region. However, in any given region, there's always a spectrum and there's always further diversity in that region. So not every West Central African is going to have a quote unquote Congoid structure. You have Hausa, you have Wolof, you have Fulani, right? Well, Fulani are more like throughout the Sahel, but the point is that there's variation there, okay? And the same thing with South Africa and in Europe. There might be somebody with a more there's Europeans with that start looking proto-Asian or whatever, and proto-Mongoloid and so on and so forth. So the diversity was further elaborated on. It was better understood, and these terminologies were abandoned in the 1800s. Especially now, with genetics, we can tell who's most closely related to who. And so, for example, if you find a skull structure in the Americas that is quote unquote Negroid, right? And because of a certain morphology, um, but they do a DNA test on the skeleton. Without that DNA test, you could say, "Oh, well, we're Australians here, we're Africoids here," and then you do the DNA test on that specimen, and it leads them directly to the people that are already there. and that are isolated. If you want to claim that every Mexican that's walking around right now in central Mexico is, oh, they're mixed with white. They're mixed with white. Okay, let's go to the Amazon. There's nobody mixed with white there. There's nobody mixed with white. They're all isolated, extremely isolated.
Those are untouched tribes. I agree with you.
Can I ask you a question?
Uh-huh.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes. Uh-huh.
You ever been to the Amazon?
No, I've been to Mexico. I'm from Mexico.
So collectively, if everybody can hear me, I'm saying this collectively. All of us, how do you know, as well as us, based off our own knowledge and understanding, how do we really know? We're just going by what is presented information wise.
That's exactly what we're going by.
We really don't know it if you've never been there. You get what I'm saying? Because I've never been to the Amazon, bro. You feel me? So I can't say I hear what you're saying, but I can't say that the people is mixed or if they're not mixed. You get what I'm saying? I can only go by the information that is being presented from whomever presenting it.
Right. But see,
the truth is this right here, man. You feel me? You like. People, I done seen people, Mexicans that look like French Montana. You get what I'm saying? Right. This man from Morocco, but I know he you know what I'm saying? He related to Ottoman Turks and stuff like that. But I've also seen people, that claim they Native Americans over here look just like people from Madagascar.
Okay.
You get what I'm saying?
Right. And so I have to address that. There's 2 points there. One is the fact that I want to address demographics. Okay, I understand that many African Americans don't. How do I put this, man? Us Latinos are very well acquainted with each other. Okay, us Latinos, whether you're Afro Latino or you're mestizo, or you're Native American, Latino isolated in Oaxaca, where my grandmother is from, in Chiapas, in Guatemala, in Bolivia, we know our demographics very well, very well. We know who is admixed, we know who is not, and the Amazon. Essentially, what you have to say about the Amazonian jungles is that you weren't there to do the DNA test. That's what you have to say, but you're not going to say that we don't know if they are mixed with white or not, based on phenotypes.
Well, I can't say this. I can't say this, huh?
Well, let me finish though. Let me finish,
okay.
Yeah, based on that context, you cannot, because unlike African Americans who may live under a rock, that's not the case with Latinos. Okay, we know our people very well.
We were born into these cultures, so we know people, and we know our culture better than, unfortunately, African Americans who have not had the same privilege because of the separation and slavery. So for anybody to try to tell us that, or doubt that the Amazon.
Wait, hold on. This Sister Matt has been quiet for a long time. Let's speak for a second.
Y'all don't think I know my culture?
That's not what I mean.
That's not what I'm saying.
No, that's not what I'm saying. Okay. I'm not saying you saying that. I'm just saying y'all don't think I know my culture.
If you know your culture, then you know it. You present the information. Yeah. That's not for us to judge. That's for you to present. That's not on us. What I'm speaking is, I'm saying that's not. I can't judge you.
Why would I present any information to you?
We don't have to go there. I'm sure you know your culture. Yeah, we don't have to go.
Right, that's the whole point. Like that's if you.
My thing is this right here. My thing is this right here. When it comes to this group, if you look at the title, it's a separation. You feel me? It's more of ego tripping thing and everybody against everybody because what it say. You get what I'm saying? We see the title of it and it say, the final battle. You get what I'm saying? Right. Me personally, I'm gonna let y'all know my position. I'm not in a battle. You feel me? With nobody. You get what I'm saying? Right. I teach based on what I know, and I do not subscribe to the title Abo. You get what I'm saying?
No, Yeah, no, I say absolutely. I respect that.
I don't subscribe to the title Apple, but by me being in the group sometimes posting. You get what I'm saying? Because if you look at my threads and look at everybody else's threads, you can see that they're totally different. I have had this. I don't even know this girl, but she had to be quote unquote black like I am. You get what I'm saying? But the chick was faking like she had an identical twin. You get what I'm saying? And the chick was like, she had two accounts, and this chick was like inboxing herself, and she was like, my sister said this. So you know what I did? I did the wisest thing. I went and looked at both of the accounts now. So our thing is that, you know, when you engage into a debate with anybody, you have to prove beyond a shadow of a doubt, you feel me, to be right and exact, right? So what I did is this right here. Number one, she fucked up when she said she had a twin sister. This is just common sense. Twins come from the same hometown unless they separated at birth, right?
Okay.
So the chick had a hometown. One of them said the Dominican Republic, and the other account said some shit like in Brazil and shit. And then the current accounts are different, but they're twins. I'm like, man, listen, girl, I don't got those type. I don't play no type of games. But then she referred to me as Abo, and I'm like, yo, what the fuck is that? Because I hear a lot of people say that. You get what I'm saying? I might be a squirrel, but I didn't know it was like an abbreviation for Aboriginal. Because when you actually break that word down, you know what I'm saying? It has connotations like a way or something like that. But when you break it down, you know, back into older language systems,
Listen, I wouldn't even put so much emphasis because I don't even want to like distract from the conversation, but you were probably getting trolled. So like, what is your like, you were probably a victim of bad trolling, but what is like what is the overall message that you're trying to convey?
Because you know, right here for us respecting one another, I just prefer.
I think he's trying to say that not
you know what I'm saying? I prefer for a person to address me as my name. You get what I'm saying? Which is my real name. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
No, and you know, when a person talking to me, I don't want that person to be expressing themselves while engaging in a conversation with me. You know, from a third person singular form. You get what I'm saying? Just, you know, don't say, oh, y'all and this and that. If you're talking to me, just address me. I'm cool with that. You get what I'm saying?
I think we're all grown men and we can all, you know, respect each other and respectfully disagree within the topic of this conversation. So I don't think anybody here has a problem with that.
Yeah. I agree with that too. But I found it interesting when Hun said that these people in the Amazon are mixed with white. And I will say that they are the most untouched people throughout South America. Right. But these people will tell you that they've had the white man come through their areas. Right. And they've had the white man kill their people. And they not only the white man, they've had the Peruvian government come through their lands and kill their people. Correct. So the white man has met face to face with these Amazon people that are damn near untouched throughout the Amazon in ancient times. I mean, not in ancient times, but during the times that they came over here and started colonizing. So to say that they're not mixed with white isn't really, it's not really something that we should be saying, because they have been met face to face with these people.
Well, listen, that's where there's context there. Okay, so suppose one Indian woman got raped. Okay, that is still not.
I know what you're saying. I feel what you're saying. But
that's a truth, man. Like, you know, if we want to sit there and say something about being mixed, man, you gotta understand we is exposed to this beast, bro. You get what I'm saying?
In every way, on every continent.
When they came, they lynched the Tainos, they lynched black people. You get what I'm saying? That was whoever was over here before they were. You get what I'm saying? They was fucking us up, bro. They're fucking over us, bro.
Absolutely.
And I don't think anybody here would disagree with that. However, we do know like tribes in the Amazon, like the Awaja the Awaja specifically, they are the least contacted people that is known of. And there has been genetic testing with researchers. They have tested their genetics. They don't have an admixture of European in them. And yet you could see that they don't look like someone who would be from West Africa or Sierra Leone or Liberia. So why do they look like that?
Well, I know what you're saying, but I know somebody personally that's more darker than freaking Matt, right? And he knows for a fact that his great grandmother was raped and had a child from that happening, but yet he still came out with this dark skin that's damn near darker than Matt. So saying that isn't really putting the fact that they haven't been untouched.
No, he's saying not just based on phenotypes, but on genetic evidence as well, and that's where the genetic evidence is important, because I want to go back to a point that Matt made earlier, where he said that there's people in Mexico that look like Arabs, right? And then there's claims by some African Americans that, oh, well, why do we look more like Melanesians and Southeast Asians than West Africans? You know, they make that claim too. There's you know, you can find a Native American can claim that, or you can accuse a Native American, oh, why do you look like a Polynesian, like a Hawaiian, right? And so everybody can look like somebody else. That doesn't mean that they are those other people. Only DNA.
That's where the value of genetics comes in. That's why
genetics
is so important.
Okay, facts. I was just like, when I said that, I was just identifying the fact that she said that, you know, look at how they look. You know what I'm saying? And when you do the genetic testing, you can't find any European in them, but just look how they look. The reason why I brought that up is because, like I said, I know a brother that's darker than Matt, and look how he looks, but yet his great-great-grandmother was still raped and bared a child that was mixed.
And this is why we definitely cannot go by that standard, man, by lookership, you know, and that's the thing that we, you know, we constantly keep having to go. I mean, to address it, you know what I'm saying? Because people keep going by that standard, and we keep trying to tell.
No, I feel you. But what you view as lookership, my G, is what I view. Okay, what I view as lookership.
Yeah.
What you view as lookership, to me, lookership is literally using my own eyes and connecting dots throughout.
Well, no, to us too. It is exactly the same thing to me. I'm just trying to say that now, it can be erroneous, and many times, well, not many times, but at times when we can, like, for example, I'll bring up a quick example, just a quick example. The Kawascar of Patagonia, they're at the very bottom of South America at the tip. And they have a skull structure that looks Australoid, right? Like Australian Aboriginal. For decades, they have been accused of having been the descendants of that first population that came here before the Mongolian Native Americans. Yeah, exactly. So not too long ago, it was put to rest. They took samples from them, Tatahuelche, and the extinct Perecues population from Southern California. They tested all of them to test this hypothesis. See, that's a hypothesis. We need to test it, and the results came back negative for those genotypes of South Asian Aboriginals. So, what is the explanation for that? There is an explanation. The explanation is convergent evolution. And again, this has nothing to do with denying with the fact that there was indeed a South Asian Aboriginal admixture in some Native Americans, because they have found it in the Shavante. They found it in the Surui and a couple other tribes from the Amazon, right, at 1 to 2% level. So extremely small percentage admixture there, but it was there nonetheless. And so this is just to say that even though it was there, that we cannot, based on phenotypes, you would think that the Fueguins were one of them, and yet they are not. And the Amazonians don't look like Australians at all, and yet they do have that genotype. So we cannot judge a book by its cover.
No, I agree with you that they don't look alike, but this is my thing, brother. When it comes down to it, this is what I like purely put as 100% factual. Let's say,
Mhm.
okay, I tell you there's a pine tree outside that bears pine cones, and you tell
Mhm.
me prove it. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go outside and show you this pine tree and grab this pine cone and show you, look, it's right here. This is a undeniable fact that no one could deny. The fact that when you say I have two eyes that could see, that's an undeniable fact. But when it comes
Right.
to the methodology of genetics that you're citing on, that proves that, you know what I'm saying, that the first inhabitants of this landmass weren't black, it's something that's not hasn't evolved into being 100% fact, dealing with the mentality that I just spoke with the
But
pine cone and
but
the pine tree.
brother, like at the same time though, like piggybacking on what Hunt said, then you're going into like, okay, well, since the science isn't 100% there, and I get your point, it's not a completely invalid point. Like, okay, then how can we therefore say it's 100%
And
fact
I'm
if
about
the
to
science?
refer it, and I was about to refer it back to what I was saying. So we could, there, these geneticists are out of their mouths. They're saying we can't 100% prove any of this is 100% factual, dealing with like undeniable facts. And I agree with that.
Right.
But nonetheless, I still respect what you believe because it took a long time for you guys to articulate the information you know and to bear it in as wisdom in your mind. But this is my thing, bro. What you say to me is pseudo is just me using my mind and my eyes and using the fact that you can see the screen, right?
Mhm.
Mm.
This, this is what I find really interesting, and this is what I lean on as wow. This is very interesting, and why is it that people doubt this when this type of proof exists? You see
Okay.
how far Siberia is to South America, right?
Mm.
Right.
Okay, now look how close Africa is to Brazil, and that's not even measuring that's measuring from Tanzania, not Angola, and that's even closer.
Right.
Now,
Right.
when it cut now, this is my thing, brother. When I see it takes an advanced culture of people to travel the seas in navigational boats that are going to take you this far of distance across this rough of seas. Okay,
Right.
now when when this stuff happened in ancient times, dealing with, you know what I mean, advanced, cultural ways, dealing with architecture, boats, and all this stuff, we can't sit here and say that Siberia was more culturally advanced as Africa 13,000 years ago.
Well,
We
So
but
can't.
this
I
is the
I have a couple points to address there.
Okay, okay, but hold
all
on.
right. Hold on, Hunt, because I kind of want to push back on this real quick. Let's address the point. Like, no one is making the argument that Siberia or the people of Siberia, the ancient people of Siberia, were more advanced or culturally advanced than than people in Eastern Africa or
So
Nilo-Saharan.
the reason why I brought that up is who's here to say that these people did not cross over
But then you have to be able to prove, okay,
6,122 miles. And listen, I understand I can't bring you 100% facts, but I could show you cultural
but
connections. I could show you, hold on, let me finish. I could show you
okay,
cosmological stories connecting. I could show you the fact of what I just showed you, that there's a damn near a 5,000-mile
Right.
difference.
Right.
You know what I'm
Right.
saying?
Right.
I could show you in many ways there's a connection with the language system, and you guys will sit here and admit that all life started in Africa. And I hope that you will admit that the first man on this planet was black, was an
Man,
African man.
listen,
Now, hold
listen.
on, Matt. Hold on, Matt. Now, I'm not saying what I'm saying. Now, since I'm talking to people that aren't arrogant as hell, I'm not going to say what I'm saying is 100% factual. The same way these geneticists say what they're saying isn't 100% factual, but it is the way I see because it is the way I understand things. I go to the culture and the way that these people lived and the way they view
Right.
life before I go to genetics.
But
Now, when it
it's
really
not.
comes down to it, I can't disprove what you're saying as being fictitious. I can't say that. My emotions can, my opinion can, but the objectivity of the matter can't be said at all. But the same thing happens when you call us pseudo for what we're saying, because you guys have a body of information that's showing why what you're saying is true, and we have a body of information of why we're saying is true. See, this is what Matt was talking about earlier when he was saying that, yo, the reason why we call each other pseudo is based off how we feel about another person's information and what backs it up. The reason why I don't use the word pseudo, first of all. The reason why I feel like the information that you guys lean on isn't 100% factual is because, for one, the people that brought you this information are saying it's not 100% factual. And I also know that this European has an agenda to destroy our history, every part of it in every type of way, and to make us to making us look like cannibals, to making us look like savages, that it was no other choice but to do what we did to them. There's so many things that you could see that the white man did to destroy history, from shooting off the noses and lips of ancient architecture to destroying them so nobody in the future would see them. So I'm not going to sit here and narrow down to genetics and the mentality and the methodology that's being used. And I'm not going to say, yo, I'm not going to sit here and say this is 100% factual, because this man has destroyed history and hid it so many other ways.
So let me
I'm not going to narrow down.
let me just address several things real quick, and then Han, you're free to jump in. But I'm just gonna quickly address a couple of things. So you asked whether or not we acknowledge that the first humanoid came out of Africa, and we do. We acknowledge that. We acknowledge that he had to be black. We acknowledge that. No one's disputing that. Okay. But then you start jumping into a whole thing of like hypocrisy, because the same neuroscience that you're criticizing and saying that, oh well, these Europeans, they're trying to destroy they're trying to hide these things, and they're destroying, taking cutting the nose off the Sphinx, as I've heard other people say, are the same people that are saying out of Africa happened. The first man was black. So which is it? Either he's wrong and they weren't. Like, if you want to say that all Europeans, started this genetic science shit, either he's wrong or he's right. Because is he right when he's saying that the first man is black? Because that's part of that's human anthropology. That is part of genetics. We understand things because of genetics.
Go ahead. Can
I say something from a perspective?
Wait, after I answer her question, because I believe you asked me a question, right?
Oh no, dude, I'm a dude, bro. I ain't going.
Oh, my bad. Nah, because I saw Hung going live with somebody that had a particular. Nah, my bad. I saw Hung going live with a particular person that had your tone of voice, so I thought it was her, but my bad.
I'm a grown man, bro. No.
My bad. Nah, I apologize for that. But to answer your question, ask it again, because that shit threw my whole mentality off. I didn't know that, and I apologize for that. But ask that again.
He's saying,
sum it up.
He's saying, when theories like out of Africa are dismissed by being white man's science, but yet the other side also leans on theories such as those, like to support their hypothesis.
For one, okay, I remember. For one, the people that shot off these noses and the people that made an agenda to destroy and hide history, these aren't the same people that you guys are referring to. But I mean, when I say same people, I'm speaking specifically, but they're a part of the same group, and these people have a history of doing these things. Now, this is the thing. I could find people in Africa and throughout the world, aside from the white man's information and genetics, even prior to him proving it, saying that all life started from Africa. That's something that's ancient. You know what I'm saying? That's something that was being said before his methodology of genetics came about. So, okay, you know what I'm saying? So this is the thing. I could sit here and I could find my ancestors speaking that they were the first ones to bring about on the planet. You know what I'm saying? I could sit here and find an African saying that they were the first people to come about on the planet prior to the white man saying it. So him saying it really doesn't mean nothing. But the fact is, I can't take this methodology of genetics and technology showing and proving what you guys are saying as 100% factual, because it does not exist in the mentality and ways of the ancients. Period.
Okay, I think I have to lay it down um, with the degrees of the standards of evidence. Okay, the, look at the very top. At the very top, okay, the evidence that is irrefutable, unless contaminated, which there are studies that are discarded because it has become contaminated, is genetics. And when we say that it is not 100% factual, it is not in the same manner whatsoever as when we say that uh, that is not 100% factual. And my
Well, I'm
theory
not
that
going off what you're saying, hun, due to the fact that you don't even know what machinery is used to bring about this evidence. I'm talking about these people were sitting in a lab in front of these machines and telling the
Mhm.
people, hey, we cannot prove it's not, you can't go about proving these things through this
Right,
a
but
hundred percent.
I can actually
Yeah.
break down exactly. If you put me a geneticist in front of me right now, I can talk to him one on one, and we can go to detail, and I can understand everything that he's talking about. When they mean that it's not 100%, they are talking about tribal links, links to
Exactly.
ethnic groups. They do not mean that they cannot link you to a general area. So, for example, a lot of you can find hundreds of articles that say, "Oh, DNA tests are faulty because they cannot prove that you are a Viking." Okay, but if you look at the at National Geographic's results, 23andMe and Ancestry.com, and any results from any professional DNA company, okay, that they're not only pseudos will tell you that they can prove with your DNA that you would have been a Viking, or that you would have been a Yoruba specifically, or an Igbo,
Yeah,
or
because
a
there's
Zulu.
many there was a group of actors that sat down and got genetic testings from different geneticists, and they all came up different.
And that guy the funny enough, he's the only one I think that
Of
owns
African
American
DNA, Rick
African
Kittles,
American
yes,
company.
and that was a marketing strategy, and he paid
Exactly.
for it. He paid for it by
But
getting
they
a
were
lot of
using
Was
pushback.
called out for.
they were using 23andMe, they were using Ancestry.com.
No, no, we're talking about two scenarios here. One is DNA companies telling you that they can link you to a specific tribe. That's not true. They cannot link you to a specific tribe, but they can link you to a group
Yes, they can
of
link you to
tribes,
nation.
Niger Congo tribes, North Native American tribes. Oh, you don't know, you can find in your family records which tribe you came from specifically. Too bad. That's not our problem. Okay. The fact is that those genes that are in you predominate in this particular area. They might be shared at the border with like Siberians, but guess what? Once you get into Europe, they're not even there. Period at all. Like the 9' allele that is found in all Native Americans and some Northeast Asian populations. Okay, that's one thing. The other thing is people getting different percentages of results, and that also has its explanation. So, for example, if you take a DNA test from 23andMe and it says that you're 48% European and 20% West African, and like I don't I forgot my percentages here, but say 10% Native American, right? Another one might tell you that you're 12% Native American or 13% Native American, and that you're only 46% European, and so on and so forth. Those are extremely small margins of error as far as how it is quantified once the results are given. But that does not mean but it's a rough estimate. That doesn't mean that, oh, because it was off by 2 to 3%, that means that you don't have that European when you are clearly, mixed, or that you don't have those West African genes when you might be living in Senegal right now, and take that DNA test, and it will say that. And so those are extremely small margins of error that are almost insignificant. And then there's
Okay.
the other argument. I've seen another one where you have triplets or twins, and they also get varying levels of ancestry, but they're even more than 2%, 2 or 3%, and that's because not every newborn needs to have necessarily the same levels of genes that he got from his mother and his father. They don't necessarily have to have the same proportions. One could have more Irish in them than the other. And this is usually and for the ones that show up with no Irish, it's probably because the ancestor was like, like 7 generations ago or 5 generations ago,
or it skips a generation. Like
yeah, or it skipped, yeah.
they don't have to have like 50% this, 50% that exact. One can have more than the other, but if you don't have a good foundation in genetics, you'll be like, no, that's pseudo, that's an anomaly, and it's not. It's very common to have like, because genes, like I said earlier, they're literally a crapshoot. You can get anything.
Right,
Well,
right.
anything relatively to your ancestry.
Right, right. And then there's the other example, which this is just a blatant unprofessionalism and lack of quality control by the company, where they gave that Chicago woman telling her that she's all Jewish and European, and that was because they mixed up her test tube with another customer.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So there's those are different examples with different scenarios and different technicalities to them.
And even those technicalities are very minute. It's very, very, very rare that you're going to find a situation where like a DNA company fucked up on your test and like there was like contamination. And
in fact, I think 23andMe didn't even address it because that would look bad on the company, so they just completely ignored it.
So from what I understand so far is you guys as I heard, you guys admit, I mean, it's not even that you admit, you guys agree with the fact that the first man on this planet was black.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. But this is what you guys say. Through his traveling from going through Asia and going elsewhere, you know what I'm saying, throughout the east, west, south, you know what I mean, and north, he mutated into having different pigments and you know what I mean, and just looking different. Now.
Well, it wasn't just him. It's just like you had
different groups
out of Africa at different times. That's the thing. You had different groups migrating out of Africa.
Okay, no sweat. I agree with you. But this is the thing. The first man on the planet was black. And the man, see, this is the thing. When we look at race, in the eyes of race, he changes into a whole nother human being, it seems. You know what I'm saying? It's
interpreted
crazy
that
when
way.
it comes to that. But the thing is that I'm seeing from your guys' methodology is that the first man on this planet was black, and when he traveled out, he mutated, and different groups traveled out, and these groups mutated. And even the Siberians that came here to the Americas, they mutated and came about looking about how they look like today. And but this is the thing to me. The man is black. The man is a human, and the man is the original human, and this original human, you know what I mean, went out throughout the planet and I guess mutated, you know what I'm saying, into looking the way other people look today. But this is my thing. I'm not gonna doubt that, but you cannot shit on my view when I explain a possibility that the first inhabitants could have been black people. You can't shit on the fact that the first Asiatic people that came here were black.
Right? No, absolutely not. As a hypothesis, I cannot. Of course not.
You cannot. You know what I mean?
Yeah, of course
I can't shit on what you're saying, because when it really comes down to it, what you're saying is what I'm saying isn't 100% factual. I can't, like I said, I can't go outside to the pine tree and get you the pine cone. But this the thing, bro. You honestly can't do it either. I mean, you could say a lot of things, you could bring up a lot of sources, but I could do it too, to be factual. And when it really comes down to it, we could see that, if 7 or more people can agree upon something that are at a higher state, it becomes a fact. See, this is the thing. You have thousands upon thousands of people agreeing with what you're saying. I have thousands upon thousands agreeing with what I'm saying. And there's other people that could say things that will make me go, wow. You know what I mean? And I'm sure there's other people upon my mentality that could say things that make you go, huh, that's interesting. But this is the thing. It's just, it's a form of what side you're going to stand on. You know what I mean? But I think as this group, you know what I'm saying, the final battle, there's so much arrogance that we just can't see the fact that, that's his view and this is my view. What's wrong with that? You know what I'm saying? I
It's
can't.
pseudo now.
It's pseudo now because his
Right.
view does not come with my view,
Well,
and
let's
it's pseudo
differentiate because
it's pseudo. It's pseudo because, like you said, it's pseudo because genetics is the white man's science, and it's pseudo because that shit didn't come from us. You know what I'm saying? That's just an opinion, like I said, and it may be in some ways my opinion, but my opinion cannot bring about 100% facts showing you that the pine cone came from the pine tree.
right,
But either can what you're saying. You know what I'm saying? You could say a lot of things that are interesting and that come from many different sources, but at the end of the day, you're putting blood into a test tube and it's operating through machinery and it's coming about with what you're saying.
Right, but look, this is the thing. If the environment of if the context of the conversation was like how you and I are talking right now, and Matt and all of us are coming together talking in this way, that would be one thing. But unfortunately, for the vast majority of the other opposing view in the group, okay, you even before natives starting pushing back, you already had motherfuckers calling people mongoloid invaders, and they is not the original people. Grandma said
grandma.
okay, that's a problem. That's a problem.
Yeah, no, I no, I've seen that. I've seen that.
You know, and yeah, go
Go
ahead,
ahead.
man.
Can I say something to y'all brothers from a cultural perspective?
Yeah, go ahead.
Listen, where I come from, I know who y'all are. Y'all know who I am. You get what I'm saying?
Right.
Now, can y'all agree with this right here? If you're Native American, you know that you have more percentage of that than white. You feel me? I know that I have more percentage of what I am than white. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Can we all agree that we the original man?
Yeah.
Because guess what? What my cousins said Africa to y'all, by looking at y'all, oh, you go to the Congo. They go address you as Bakongo. You get what I'm saying? That's a plural word for people. For a single, they gonna say Mukongo. You go to Koiland, they gonna call you a Koina. The only people that they say not they people is the man that rejected the human family, came back and raped his ancestors and his mothers and lynched them and all that. At the end of the day, we know who we are. Not me speaking from, you know what I'm saying, me being a black man in America, you know what I'm saying, regardless of my struggles and knowing that I'm of African ancestry. I don't hate the white man. I don't hate no man. I have a problem with people's ways. But guess what? I can't, be just like them, because if I be like them, I'm just stupid. I'm stupid and low as them. You get what I'm saying? So I'm not gonna disrespect. I'm not gonna do the things that he did. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I'm gonna be better through my actions. You get what I'm saying? Cause me, y'all be sitting here arguing, and I just be sitting out. Ain't now one of y'all ever heard me type up, oh, the black man is the original man. I think we was here before the motherfucking European was. And I think we was in this land over here in America, regardless who say they native or who say they African. We was over here before the white man was, and guess what? We was mixing together for years before he got over here. You get what I'm saying? And started raping our people. So my thing is this right here.
The Native Americans will tell you that.
Yeah, what's the problem? You get what I'm saying? Cause see the thing with us, you feel me? Us intellectual people, we like to argue with people that is not well studied in that in whatever aspect you're learning. You get what I'm saying? You can't, you feel me? Y'all brothers on genetics. You cannot argue with a person that isn't on what you want. You get what I'm saying? They will never understand. They will never grasp it. I can't spit etymology or linguistics to a person that's not on that. You get what I'm saying? Because it'll go over their head. You get what I'm saying? So guess what? We gotta pick and choose our battles. You get what I'm saying? And who we engage in conversations with. Because guess what? As soon as a person go to popping off, I'm gonna let you cuss me out. I'm gonna let you do everything. I'm gonna be like, okay. You get what I'm saying? Because I know people, they get frustrated if they don't understand you. Right. And then it's pointless to keep trying to explain yourself over and over and over again, and they just don't get it. You get what I'm saying? Do y'all know like how much passion I have for my people? And I've heard people say, "Oh, you're not my people." I've heard brothers that claim Indian ancestry. You're not my people. I done heard people that say they Israelites. Oh, you not my people. You feel me? So guess what? I'm not Native. I'm not African. Well, damn. Well, what the fuck am I? Alien? I know I gotta belong to somebody. You get what I'm saying? So my point is the shit people say. Yeah, I'm human. I got feelings, but I don't let that shit bother me. But the point is this right here. At the end of the day, we shouldn't even be arguing with each other like we do, and desecrating and disrespecting each other like we do. We should be trying to come together and come to a conclusion to better our people as a whole, regardless of what title you subscribe to. You get what I'm saying? Because guess what? The last time I checked, you feel me? The so-called Indian Native American and the so-called black man do not got no fucking economics. And we're in the same boat at the end of the day, and we playing that little crab bucket game, pulling each other back in. You get what I'm saying? My thing is this right here. I'm going to give you a boost out the bucket. Just pull me out too. And we're going to pull the rest of these brothers out. You get what I'm saying? Because, let me ask y'all a question. Who know about sovereignty?
I know what it means.
Anybody up on sovereignty?
Yeah, I'm up on sovereignty.
I know a little bit about it.
Y'all know a little bit about that. So do y'all brothers know how to type up y'all own affidavits and put shit in public records and get you a probate court? You know what I'm saying? Get you a court date and probate court and you feel me? And all that shit, write a will and all that shit. Y'all know about that shit?
How to notarize it? Yeah, because I have written my own will for me and my family.
Man, listen,
so
I could sit here and it's crazy, man. Cause the truth is this right here. I'll give y'all a good example. Y'all hear people screaming they Moors, right?
Yep.
Y'all hear that all the time. Y'all agree, right?
Yeah, that's true.
They be like, we know the law and this and that, but the truth is this right here. A nationality is something created. It's a corporation. It's a corporation like your birth certificate. It's a corporation like your identification. It's a corporation like your social security number. It's a corporation like your marriage certificate. You get what I'm saying? Or your car note. It's in all caps at the end of the day. That's your straw man. You get what I'm saying? But a lot of people don't know how to use their straw man to get what they want in the society that we live in. You get what I'm saying? And they don't understand when you actually research the law, you feel me? You know your UCC laws, your codes and shit like that. It's only 3 laws. People don't even know it's so simple. It's 3 laws that men live by. It's one is you don't supposed to inflict bodily harm to a person. The second law is you don't supposed to steal or damage a person's property. You get what I'm saying? The third law is you're supposed to kill a person. Everything else is bullshit. And that's the truth. And then you got your amendment rights and shit like that. But they not gonna tell you a 14th Amendment. That shit ain't nothing but a straw man. That shit is you use a fucking object to the system at the end of the day. You get what I'm saying? So at the end of the day, everybody is fighting for what you call human rights. If you don't know these people laws, you pretty much fuck. And if you don't know the laws of your own sovereignty, your own free will, you feel me, and you being competent to make your own choices, then you pretty much fuck. You get what I'm saying?
And when it really comes down to it, Matt, I feel the only reason why genetics, like people we talking to right now have an issue with people that have the mentality we have is because the arrogance that comes about with the speech when people say, oh, y'all were the invaders, y'all were the Mongoloid invaders, we were already here. That's the type of mentality that breeds the arrogance that they come about talking about we pseudo and we bitches that and we fuckboy that. And the arrogance that we express coming from them is the fact that they completely dismiss that we're wrong due to the fact that it's not lining up with this particular science. But when it really comes down to it, if this page was to start off on a level of respect where those things didn't exist, we would have already been compromised and found a way and a common ground where we can agree on. You know what I'm saying? And that shit's already happening right now. You know what I mean?
You know when our people start really kicking the truth, they'll start kicking your ass out of the groups, canceling pages. You always in Facebook jail. When you really kicking the truth, they'll do everything in their power to stop your ass from getting along.
Let me tell you this. Why do you think we're talking on? Why do you think we're talking on Google Hangouts and shit? Because that's the shit that's happened to us.
Yeah, exactly.
When we start,
this Google Hangout.
Yeah, this is Google Hangout. Because when we start,
I got dude on speaker, so you don't know that.
I didn't know this was Google Hangout, man. I actually got a Google Hangout, man.
We on that Google Hangout.
But man, like I could sit there like for real, like you know how like when it comes to the law and shit, you feel me? If you don't want to get fucked over, that's something you gotta do. Y'all ever heard that old saying is you can lead the horse to the water, but it's up to that horse to drink it. You get what I'm saying? That's the thing. If you already you don't go get your freedom from them. You already free. You just gotta stand up on your own too and be like, look, motherfuckers, I'm free.
And when it comes down to it, bro, we're not the only people saying that. You know what I'm saying? Well, let's get down to it. Do y'all agree that there was a relation between Native Americans and Africans prior to the white man coming here?
No.
Okay. And I respect your opinion, but there's many Native Americans that will go against what you're saying. There's many Native Americans that see I'm not the only one. You know what I'm saying? It's not just a whole bunch of Africans and black folks talking about we're the original people. Nah, it's not just that, bro. There's many Native Americans that say the Africans were here before Columbus, that and I'm not just talking about the Ivan Van Cernima and shit. I'm talking about Native Americans.
Can you name the tribes and the
one of the councils from my nation, the Iroquois? His name's Nightwolf.
Yeah, I know him very well. I know he does. I know he does.
He says this, and he agrees with this. So what we're saying, and it's not just him. My grandfather is another person.
Okay, that's two.
You know what I mean? And his grandfather is another person, and his grandfather's grandfather is
no,
another
but that's
person.
the same lineage.
I don't know how far it goes back there. You know what I mean? But we're not the only people coming about with this. It's not just black people saying this. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I think what's most important is what Matt was saying when it really comes down to it. I'm done with saying, no, you're wrong, bro. I'm done with saying, bro, you coon because you on that white man shit. I'm done saying that shit, bro, because what I learned tonight is what really matters when it comes to Native people and black people talking is the fact what Matt said, that we in the same bucket. You ever been to a reservation and seen how fucked up it is? You ever been to the projects and seen how fucked up it is? You ever heard of a tree nigga? You ever heard of that term?
Yes.
Through the eyes of our oppressors, they were looked at as the same benefit that they could use us with. You know what I mean? So wait, Matt. When it really comes down to it, it's more important that we compromise with each other based on what we can agree than coming together and arguing about shit that we can never come to a freaking common ground on. Because I'm gonna tell you right now, y'all is not finna fly with the shit I'm saying, because it just goes completely against your science. And,
know where the term coon originates
and I'm not finna go with what you're saying due to the fact that I'm strictly on cultural sciences. And I think it's mad interesting, and I think it's beautiful that I could take the sciences of my Native American side of me and my African side and connect it on a cosmological level, on an architecture level, and just on a way of life, period. And that's my primary source. You know what I'm saying? But I respect what y'all saying, man. I respect what y'all saying, because I respect the fact that you put all this energy into it to bring about with this understanding. There's nothing wrong with that.
Anybody know why they call us? Anybody know why we use the term coon and why they call us coons?
Nah.
Anybody?
Nah.
Nope.
Who said nah?
Me.
Anybody else know where the word coon come from? Where it originate from?
No.
Nah.
No. Well, let me shed some light on y'all, and y'all can look this up. The word coon come from bear coon, and these was big ass traps. These Europeans basically like jails. You feel me? They was big ass traps that these Europeans made us build on our own, and they used to throw us in them.
Okay.
Y'all can look that up. So, you know, y'all gotta understand, you know, some of the shit we say to each other, you feel me? And it derives from our oppressor, from him colonizing and ethnic cleansing us and assimilating us into his culture. You gotta understand, like, the shit we say to each other is really like is disrespectful, and it's disgusting, and it's a sign of mockery. You get what I'm saying? It's like,
because
yo, we repeating, we regurgitating what he's saying, but we don't understand, you feel me, the connotations that these words have. You get what I'm saying?
But there's a reason for that.
What they really mean when he expressed them. You get what I'm saying?
Now, I feel you what you're saying, bro, but this is the thing, like, we live under the yoke of white supremacy. Unfortunately, that is our reality. And this is why we try to have these discussions with the opposing sides and try to get especially Black people and people of color in general and Latino people to start embracing science, because the enemy of your enemy is your friend. If you are scientifically literate, there isn't any kind of pseudo shit that can make you susceptible to white man fucking scientific racism. When you have that scientific knowledge and know-how, you are able to defeat things of that nature, which is why
And guess what? I'm very well grounded in science. I just don't have conversations on that level because it's no need to. You feel me? You can have two people that's scientifically inclined and they can have totally different ideas about the subject matter. At the end
but
of
my
the
whole
day.
point is, it's not just about you. I'm saying, like, in general, as a community.
I understand what you're saying. I was just talking in general too. You get what I'm saying? Like, I'm well grounded in science. Y'all could go on my page and look at scientific studies I done put together. You get what I'm saying? I know you familiar with the brother name, his name Amir now. You feel me? He went by the name Ngozi. You get what I'm saying? You say he was with Team Osiris, right, huh?
Yep. That's my brother right there.
Okay, me and that brother real tight. You get what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So at the end of the day, I know what it is when it comes to genetics and all that. You get what I'm saying? But at the end of the day, like, genetics is not gonna bring our people together. Me speaking linguistically is not gonna bring our people together. You feel me? We will have to sooner or later sit at a fucking round table. You feel me? And talk about our well-being, our livelihood, and our economics. You feel me? Or how we can establish economics. You feel what I'm saying? Corresponding with each other. Coexisting with each other. You feel what I'm saying? All this shit. We can talk about all this shit, but what's at the end of the day? What's really important? Our livelihood.
I would say this. The only so you know, a lot of the African American community, and specifically this whole Aboriginal movement that's been popping up as of lately, they are willing to say things like that, that we should unite on the basis uh, of the fact that we are both oppressed, or that we are both non-white, or so on and so forth. Native Americans
Right.
are not willing to unite with you just on that basis alone. We would like to have our identities not necessarily have to encroach upon one another in
Hey,
order to unite together.
but this my thing, bro. You feel me? I don't care about, you feel me? Like, yeah, identity is cool, but you get what I'm saying? I'm not trying to deny you of your identity, of none of that. You get what I'm saying? But
Well,
at the end of the day,
you are not personally, but the vast majority of
I
the
get,
group is,
I
and
get,
that's the
I get,
reason for
I
the
get
group
what
in
you,
the first place.
I get what you say. I get what you're saying, but at the same time, bro, like, man, we in the same boat, bro. Like, regardless if you don't want to look at it like that or not, bro. Like, for real,
But
man.
we are. You're right. We in the same boat. But just like we won't accept Europeans whitewashing African culture and African history, Native Americans don't have to accept that certain African Americans want to whitewash their culture and their history and claim something
Blackwash.
that does not belong to them. That's
Bro,
not right. I
bro,
don't think
listen,
anybody with any common sense will agree to that.
listen, I would never whitewash. I mean, yeah, I would never me personally, I would never whitewash your history or blackwash your history. You get what I'm saying? Because guess what? When the white man do fucked up shit, you know the white man, you know how much the white man remind me, you feel me, of the shit that we supposed to be doing.
Right, but like Hans said, we're not it doesn't have to be you specifically, but the movement is representative of the same kind of whitewash bullshit.
Most definitely. But you gotta see, at the end of the day, man, it's y'all choice. You get what I'm saying? It's our choice to
It's
have
not to what we
conversations with
subscribe to.
whomever. You get what I'm saying?
Right.
Like,
Of
like
course,
me,
yeah, no
I'm
one
not.
knows
Bro, listen, I believe. You get what I'm saying? I believe that people from different cultures, that shit unique. You get what I'm saying? The see, you feel me? Being different is very unique. I don't want a person to be like me. You get what I'm saying? Cause guess what? If a person got to be like Matt, man, then I ain't authentic. You get what I'm saying? So guess what? When I talk, I want people to disagree with me. You get what I'm saying? But I also want people to tell me why they disagree with me. And you know what I'm saying? They give me a very logic explanation why. Not, no, oh, I disagree with you just cause. You know what I'm saying?
No, we are all in the same boat with that, but it goes back to my earlier point. Like, you know how like, for, I'll give you an example. You know how like white people, for example, will have these Hollywood movies depicting Egyptians as white fucking people
Oh man,
and
you know I
whitewashing
do,
the shit out
bro.
of them. Like guys,
Everything whitewashed. I already
right.
know,
They do
bro.
the same thing with
But
Native American movies.
you see, that's
Yeah,
where Native
yeah.
Americans are coming from when they tell these abos like you guys like not you in particular, but just abos in general that do that dumb shit. Like for example, I have indigenous Taino ancestry, right? How is it funny for Abo to fucking try to tell me about my history and try to whitewash my history when you just a regular nigga from South Carolina? There's nothing you could tell me about Haiti and the Dominican Republic that I don't know because I live it. I live the culture. I live it every day. I live that culture. I speak the languages that are incorporated with Spanish. So for an Abo to come out of nowhere and say, well, you know, they were this, they weren't that. How the fuck are you going to tell me? I was born there. I was born in the center of colonization. The first colony in the New World is Santo Domingo, the Dominican Republic. If any group of people know about colonization, speak to a Dominican. We know it better than anybody because it happened to us first.
Who's talking right now? Who's talking right now?
It's Khalid.
Okay, brother Khalid.
Yeah, brother.
I feel where you coming from. Cause soon as somebody, bro, the brother Rashay will tell you, You get what I'm saying? Like, people don't want to. The majority of people on Facebook today, it's all about their ego. They don't want to deal with truth. They don't want to deal with how in ancient times, you feel me, when when the white man wasn't advanced, you feel me, how we enslaved them. You get what I'm saying? They don't want to deal with that. You get what I'm saying? So when a person like me tell them, like, look, we enslaved them first. You get what I'm saying? And we actually enslaved them. You get what I'm saying? So when you sit there and you tell a person that and they're not well versed with a story and opposite that they've never been exposed to, it's like, oh, you a coon, you this, you that. And I tell them, like, look, that's where slavery started at first. It started in South America. Now you have like big ports, you feel me, like Carolina and shit like that. But that shit started in the South, man. And I tell people, like, look, man, Brazil and all that shit, and on the coast of South America, man, that shit was going down, man.
Look, I'm gonna just say this. Like, I feel like we can reach some kind of common ground in acknowledging that it's just fucked up overall to claim cultures and identities that don't belong to you. Because just like I gave that example with how white people use Egyptians and white Egyptians as a template to claim that, oh, they were European when we know they weren't. It's the same thing that Native Americans like myself, well, like, who have indigenous ancestry, because I identify as Afro-Latino, for who have indigenous ancestry, we say the same thing. Like, how is it that somebody from, like, for example, North Carolina, South Carolina can wake up one day and, pretend to play Indian and they say that, oh, they're Taino, when they've never lived the culture, they don't know the language, they don't know the history, they don't know anything. And then when you have someone who's real, who lives the life, and who tells them about it, act ignorant and not respected.
This my thing. I can't speak on what other people say. You get what I'm saying? No, my point is this right here. My point is this right here. If it is people that saying that, who am I to say that they live that culture or not? Just because they're from South Carolina, I really don't know, and I really don't know how far they lineage go back. You feel me? And whom in their family married whom? You feel what I'm saying?
Right, but we definitely.
Me personally, you feel what I'm saying? I don't. That's the thing. This is the thing with black people. You get what I'm saying? I'm just gonna keep the shit 100. Black people tend to cleave on to other people's culture because you gotta understand that they've been culturally destroyed. You get what I'm saying? So I don't think it's so much of them stealing your culture, but more embracing your culture because they be trying to find themselves. You get what I'm saying?
Oh, no, absolutely, 110%. I agree with that.
When it comes to black people, man, black people, bro, out of the most, bro, been like culturally destroyed, bro. Like,
I know.
You get what I'm saying? I'm talking about over here in America, bro.
Yeah.
They can't even grab. They don't even have fragments left of their culture. You get what I'm saying?
We acknowledge that's true. That's a fact.
So guess what? You feel me? People know. You feel me? Like you say you Taino. You feel me? You Afro Taino. You feel me? You understand that. All right, when these people came over here to the Taino Islands and all that shit, the reason we started speaking Spanish because that was their language. You feel what I'm saying? And they named this shit Hispanio, and they named this shit Latino. You feel me? And they changed the word Tino, Tino and shit like that. Yeah, I understand that, and they went to Puerto. You feel me? You had rich port, they just flipped it, and the people started calling themselves Puerto Ricans and shit like that. But I understand that those people was already on them islands. You get what I'm saying? And you gotta understand that Dominicans, right? You got Dominican Republic on one side, and you got Haiti on the other side. You get what I'm saying? It's the same goddamn island, though. You get what I'm saying? Right. So the people was already there. You get what I'm saying? And we know that, you feel me, Dominicans, they speak Spanish or they speak Latin, you feel what I'm saying? And then you got the Haitians, they speak Creole. We know this shit come from the French and all that. You get what I'm saying? So you gotta understand where these people just culturally just like dismembered us, bro.
Yeah, I mean, bro,
So
we're not debating that shit.
I understand where you come from, but overstand this right here.
Yeah, no, absolutely, bro.
We don't disagree with that.
I would even take it beyond this whole Abo thing, because I agree with that 110%. You know what I'm saying? Like it looks like it feels like it that the United States Black Americans are the ones that were the most affected to the root, to the core by
culturally annihilated.
Yeah.
You know what, y'all? I know a dude, right? A dude, Box. He from Puerto Rico. His name is. He got a son named. His son named Pedro, and I can't remember what his name, but Pedro looked just like you, Rashay, Han, and the other brother on here. You feel me? He bright skinned, but his daddy darker than me. You get what I'm saying? And this man is a Dominican. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And you know what he said to me? He like, yo, he thought I smoked cigarettes because he smoked cigarettes. He said, yo, come here. And his English is horrible. So he went talking to me, and I'm listening, and he was like, man, yeah, man, me and you the same. So I'm like, what you mean? He say when the European, when the whites came, he just brainwashed us to make us think that we're different. This came right out this man's mouth.
Yeah.
This man whole family from Puerto Rico, little island of Puerto Rico.
Yeah, I agree with that, bro. I mean, look, like again,
I agree with this, bro. We are a family.
We were the first ones to be colonized. So no one, I don't think anybody here disagrees like that all of our cultures were affected significantly by white supremacy. Like we live under the yoke of that, and that is something that we have to push against. And the only way you can push against with ignorance is what? With knowledge. That is the only way you free yourself. Right?
Actually, hey, what's your name again, brother? I need to remember your name, bro.
Khalid, Khalid.
Okay, so Khalid and Han and Rashay, right? Y'all, there's three brothers on it, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna keep. All right, listen.
You ever see how I look like? I'm darker than Rashay and then Han. Yeah. I'm darker than both of y'all.
I'm trying to think what your avatar look like. You feel what I'm saying?
You wearing glasses, ain't you, Khalid?
What's up?
You wearing glasses, ain't you, in your picture?
I was wearing glasses in one of my pictures, but all my accounts keep getting fucking kicked out and suspended and all that shit. I have the same problem Hun has.
What's your? You got short hair like cut in the fade, bro.
Well, in one of my pictures, yeah, but the only person that see me in there has been my sister, Lynette. She's the only one that see me in there.
Okay.
And Hun seen me too. So
what's your last name on Facebook?
My last name is I'm Banjo in the group. I'm Banjo Ginga in the group. I'm Banjo.
Okay.
I'm Banjo Ginga in the group because again, like they keep fucking kicking our shit out. So we got to do what we got to
do that. I'll tell you this, dude. The dude that runs that page is a straight idiot.
The reason I asked you for your name because I wanted to address something to you, right?
Yeah, you're good.
You got like over there in Africa. When I went back to Africa, over there, you have different tribes. You got like different ethnic groups. Like you got You got the Fula people, the Fulani people. You got the Ashanti. You got the Kissi tribe. You got the Angola. You got all these different tribes, right? You got the Hasi people, the Igbo. All these different ethnic groups, right?
Right.
Now, peep game. They might don't get along. And they might go through what you call tribal wars, right? And they even get so intense that they kill each other, right? Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, guess what they'll say? They won't say, "Oh, you not my people." They'll say, "We family," because they know they related.
Right.
But over here, this mentality we got over here, "Oh, you not my people." You get what I'm saying? "Oh, you not my brother. You not this." Do you know how many countries over here in the United States? Or just the Americas in general? Do you know how many countries, bro?
I mean, bro, like it's over like 150 countries. If you're talking about the North and Western Hemisphere, we're talking about over 150 countries.
Yeah, we talking about if we talking about America,
like
the Americas, South America
and North America,
and North America, right?
Yeah.
Do you know the average black person will only say that it is two countries? You got the United States and you got South America. That's what they'll say, bro, because they don't know.
That's true.
You know what I'm saying? So guess what? Our people are like that one verse in the Bible say our people are destroyed for the lack of knowledge. But it ends right there. The lack of knowledge of what? The lack of knowledge of self. Mm-hmm. At the end of the day, you get what I'm saying? Like, you gotta understand, it ain't just black people, but like y'all, you feel me? Like, I don't have a problem with y'all. I don't have a problem with my people. I don't have a problem with black, like dark people like me. But I understand that their mental condition is fucked up. Like, I deal with these people every day, like, in person. You get what I'm saying? And they fucked up. Everything is a disagreement. And I'm like, damn. Like, they don't even see my way, bro. Like, man, you can't, bro, listen. I'm going to tell you where I live at, man. I stay in Florida, right? Mm. If you having a conversation with a dark ass person, bro, do you know that conversation will not last for 30 seconds without them getting offended, bro, and ready to fight? I promise you.
I mean, that's true anyway, bro. Yo, that's true in the hood. That's true anywhere.
They fucked up, bro. And guess what? The truth is this right here. When it come to our people collectively, who you call Puerto Rican or Taino or black or Haitian, whatever you want to call us, guess what? We share the same characteristics. You feel me? On a low level, 95% of us are trying to resolve a situation with violence, bro. We the only people that do that shit.
Right, because we've been conditioned to do these things. It's a condition.
Right. We go back to what?
We've been conditioned.
Fuck each other.
Exactly. We've been conditioned to solve our problems the same way our oppressors solve their problems.
I mean, I was talking to Han yesterday, and I was explaining to him, you know, because he asked, like, why is it that Dominicans and Haitians specifically have so much animosity towards each other? And there's a historical precedent for that, you know, that goes back 205 years. Because a lot of people think that Dominicans got their independence from Spain, and that's not the truth. Every February 27th, we celebrate our independence from Haiti because Haitians ruled over us, and there was a reason for that. They ruled over us for 22 years between 1821 and 1844, which is our independence year. We didn't get our shit from Spain. It was from Haitians, and the reason is because when Haiti first united the island under after Toussaint Louverture kicked the French out, they had destroyed their economical way of being able to, being able to be a sustainable country, because the only economy there was what? Slavery. It was a slavery plantation, slavery economy, right? So what they did was, when they liberated the island and they kicked the French out and they scared the Spaniards away for a while, they took over the Dominican side, but they started doing the same thing that the French had done to them. They started to enslave Dominican, and forbid them from practicing Catholicism and from speaking the language that unfortunately was brought by the colonizers. That's where the animosity starts from. So that's why you have a lot of Dominicans today, and I'm a Dominican. I can admit that freely. There's a lot of colorism and a lot of anti-Haitianism, but and a lot of anti-Africanism. We have an issue with embracing our African side, but that comes because our ancestors were under occupations from Haitians for 22 years, and it wasn't a pretty occupation. We consider that the occupational period. We don't consider that like a period of happiness. It's the same thing that the Israelis are doing to the Palestinians now that they're committing ethnic cleansing. It is the same thing. Had Haitians come,
that goes back to the root.
And had Haitians come, and I've had conversation with Haitians. Like, I love Haitians. I don't have an issue with my brothers. And I've even had to fight against my own family members because they have certain perceptions of Haitians, that's not correct. And had Haitians come with at least the idea of uniting the island under the first Black Republic, you know what a force that would have been in the Caribbean? But they didn't come to the other side of the island with that mentality, because when they came there, they found the mulatto population that did not look like them. Like, yeah, you have Afro-Dominicans there, sure, but the majority of Dominicans are triracial with overwhelming African ancestry. So what did they do? Instead of uniting with us, they decided to subjugate us for 22 years until we fought a war and we won our independence. So every time we celebrate our independence, it's from the Haitians, it's from Black rules. And it's fucked up how colonialism led to that. Colonialism led to Haitians having to find another way to create a stable economy based on the same oppression tactics that the French used against them. White supremacy is a cancer. It is a fucking cancer.
Even before colonialism, human history is not pretty. I'll tell you something about why Cortez was able to take over Mexico. The reason why Cortez was even able to take over Mexico was not because of the weaponry, was not because of the technology, because at the time the muskets that they had sucked, where you would have to reload forever in order to get a clear shot, and they didn't have that much of a battalion here. They only had like 1,200 or 400, 400, like less than 1,000 people here. The reason why they were able to defeat the Aztec Empire, they really call themselves Mexica. The reason why they were able to defeat the Mexica was because they had all these surrounding tribes from all the rest of the Mexican region and below uniting with them, because the Aztecs were a bunch of assholes. Okay, like the Aztecs would pillage other powerless tribes that had no power. They would rape the women, kill the men, enslave them. They would the type of enslavement was indentured servitude more so than like the horrors that we see from the transatlantic. But still, exactly. but same difference. And most the main thing that they really like to do was sacrifice motherfuckers. You know what I'm saying?
We also got to remember there was different branches of Aztec people.
Right, exactly, which is what I'm saying. It was really the Mexica Empire that was empowered, because there were other Nahua-speaking people that would understand, on any given day, they can communicate with the Mexica, and these were like the Tlaxcaltecas, which was one of the main ones that joined Cortez. You had the Otomi and a bunch of other tribes, but they did that for a reason. The Aztecs were such assholes that even when they started getting their ass kicked, they told some of the other tribes that if they joined them, they would give them like a year free of free taxes, like no taxes. They wouldn't charge them taxes. Like, really? Like, that's your offer? Like you know what I'm saying? Like, you're getting your ass kicked, and like the offer is that I won't charge you taxes for like a year. You know what I'm saying? Like, like that's how that was their mentality. Like, they were bigoted. You know what I'm saying? And so there was no, it was what it was. You can't, like I'm sure I have some. Well, I know for a fact I have some Nahua in me. I don't know if it would have been on a Mexica specifically, but in either case, it's not a pretty story. Every human's, during the Paleolithic era, the Niger Congo tribes that you see today all over West and Central Africa, uh, the Pygmies and Khoisanid type peoples were all over that shit. You know what I'm saying? But they came in with the farming and I mean, it is what same thing with Southeast Asia. You had the Aboriginal population, and then the Austronesians came down, and same thing. They started kicking. Basically, hunter-gatherer populations everywhere suffered during the agricultural
Exactly.
revolution.
Hell, you don't even need to go even that far. Like you can just go back 27 years when most of us was probably like 4 years old. At the time during the Rwandan genocide. How did that come about? That was manipulated by the Belgian powers because the Belgians, prior to Rwanda being granted their independence, had split the two ethnic groups, the Tutsis and the Hutus, and the Belgians favored the Tutsis because they had features that were more
The
thin.
Tutsis was killing the Hutus too, man. They was making them kill.
They were making them kill them, and the Tutsis were the ones who were majority in power until the Hutus were
Exactly.
able to come to power. And then guess what happened? The Hutus decided to enact their revenge, and that was all manipulated by the Belgian colonial power. That
Exactly,
was
because
all.
Leopold was literally making these people chop their own people's hands off.
Yeah. And
Exactly.
mind you, it's funny. King Leopold was never tried for his war crimes, but Nazis and Germany's were. Where when King Leopold his under his government, he was responsible for killing over 10 million.3 Congolese people. So people need to understand this is all manipulated by colonialism and powers at B. They
And
they
there's a
force.
reason why they made the Congolese people do their own people like that, so that when we looking through the eyes of history back into the past, it looks like we were
Man,
just savage
listen,
people fucking each other up.
listen. Them same motherfuckers, bro. They
That shit
they
crazy, man.
fucking tied motherfucking Patrice Lumumba to a tree, bro, and made his own people kill him, bro.
Yep.
So this
And
shit is just it's the
and you
same
It's a
want
thing
divide and
they
conquer
did
strategy
everywhere, bro.
worldwide, bro.
You
This
want to
is
hear the fucked up
strategy.
part?
They
They
use that
killed
same
Lumumba for
strategy.
no reason. For no reason. They only killed him because they thought that he was a Marxist, and he wasn't even that. He just felt that he could be closer to the Soviet Union because he felt that, the United States and the Western powers had ulterior motives, which they did. They wanted the access to the minerals in Kitanga. They wanted the access to the mineral, the salt and the cobalt. So the majority of our technology, 85% of cobalt comes from the Congo. Every time you play a PlayStation 4, you use your laptop, that's where it comes from. It comes from that material, cobalt.
Your
And
iPhone.
the Western powers wanted access to that. They wanted access to those minerals. That's why they killed Lumumba, because Lumumba was against that shit. And he had his own people sell him out. His own people sold him out to the Western powers and set him up to be assassinated. His own people. It's all about ulterior motives and how people play, and how that's how they were able to break Africa apart. They put tribes against each other,
Exactly.
and promise
And they
one
did the same thing in the Americas.
and the Americas too. The only thing with the
Because when you
Tainos,
look at when you look at the Shawnee
All
people,
because they want some natural resources,
exactly,
bro.
because that's the thing. I heard an Amazon brother say that the difference between our wars and European wars is you guys literally fight over the earth and the soil itself and blow each other into oblivion until you get it. We didn't fight that way. And it's crazy because when you look at the Shawnee people, they were destroyed by their own neighboring tribes because of the same reason. When the Shawnee people were living and the British people and the Spanish people were in the Americas, the British people were helping the Shawnees, right? And the Shawnee people were accepting help from the British. Well, the Spanish people were trying to mess up the Shawnees and destroy them, but the British people were helping them. You know what I'm saying? Oh, we'll give you weapons to fight them. We'll give you this. But the Shawnee people did not know that their brothers on the east side were being destroyed by the British people as well. So that when the other tribes figured out that these people, the Shawnees, were accepting help from the British, it made them look like, yo, what the fuck? They turning on us now? You know what I'm saying? And at the end of the day, when the British gave them the weapons and promised that they would fight side by side against the Spaniards, they left them and they brought them into a burning house. You know what I'm saying? That just wiped them out and left them to where they were powerless. Their leaders got killed. Their warriors got killed. You know what I'm saying? The wise men got killed.
You know where that tactic started from? Like the burning of the houses and shit like that. You know where it started from? The Europeans started applying that. It started in the Dominican Republic. Specifically, if anything, it started also in Haiti as well, because when the problem was that the Quisqueyans and the Ites at first were too nice. They were too nice to the Europeans because they didn't know any better. So the Europeans saw that and they took advantage of that. And when they started, the Quisqueyans and the Ites were organizing a resistant groups against the Bartholomew specifically, who he's 10 times worse than Columbus ever was. Bartholomew's Columbus's brother, 10 times worse than he could ever be. He was running around raping women and killing men and doing all kinds of shit. He's the one that founded Santo Domingo. He's the one who founded the colony. When they were trying to form resistant groups against Bartholomew, what they did was that they promised that they were going to have a treaty and leave the Quisqueyans alone. They led a group of Quisqueyans into a house to sign this treaty, supposedly saying like, okay, like we'll leave you alone and we'll let you have your stuff. They wound up taking those Quisqueyans, they wound up taking them into the house, burning the house alive, and they only left one person alive who was an IT chieftain. Her name is Ananakoa. They left her alive, and they gave her, because she was a chieftain at a very young age, very intelligent, beautiful woman, and they gave her an option. They were like, look, we know you guys were conspiring against us. We're going to try you for treason against the Spanish crown. You have two options. You can either be a concubine to a Spanish warlord or a conquistador, or we will hang you. And she decided to commit to die instead, with dignity, instead of being prostituted like a common whore. So she is honored in my country. She's on the national stamps in my country, and I believe in Haiti as well, because she came from the Haitian side, which is called Jaragua. But you see, those are things that people who claim to have this ancestry wouldn't know, because they weren't born in the culture. Crazy. They don't know these things, so that's why we get pissed when they start claiming shit arbitrarily. Like, you just can't be claiming shit for the sake of claiming shit. Like, you
without knowing anything about the culture, period.
Without knowing about the culture, that's where we come from. That's where animosity comes from. Like anybody's going to be pissed when you pump faking and you not living the real. Anybody. Real recognizes real. And if you're not living the real, someone has every right to call you out for being a fraud, because you're frauding and you're disrespecting a culture that you know nothing about. And
I'll tell you, bro, the majority of the people that are sitting there saying that type of stuff, I will admit are pseudo as hell. I've gone at, see, even though I have the mentality that the first people on this landmass were Africans and black people, I will go at it when a Moor starts making up shit in his mind and posting it to make it seem like he was the first man here. You know what I'm saying? I'm not with that shit. And I'm not with the fact that genetic people will look at somebody like you that has African blood and say, man, you ain't native, you African, you black. You know what I'm saying? So there's arrogance and there's stupidity on both sides of this fence. You know what I mean?
My whole thing is this, like, I don't want to.
The brother got just as right to claim Africa as well as this land over here. At the end of the day,
I claim my African ancestry proudly. Like, no one's going to.
What I'm saying, brother, is you got just the right to claim both lands, bro. Because you got ties to both of them lands. You get what I'm saying?
Exactly.
I do, and that's why, like, again, people like myself get upset when people are pump faking a culture that they know nothing about. Just like people get upset when white people pump fake about Egyptians being white when we know that's not true. It's the same logic. It's the same logic. All we're saying is respect people's culture. It's one thing you're trying to find who you are. There's nothing wrong with that. You know, nobody was
the only white Egyptians I know is doing Ptolemy rule, which was a general which was a general Alexander. You get what I'm saying?
Right. And the Western Asian Histors as well.
You know, the original inhabitants of that land were not white people.
Period.
Exactly. And we know that. But again, there are people, European Eurocentrists, that will just come and tell you, and you know these racist scientific assholes exist. They will come and tell you that no, they were white, they were closer to.
Let me say something. I feel like there needs to be a more combined effort on all sides to start representing the history, the true history and ancestral history of West Africa. I feel like because you know, with African Americans. So, like for example, in the Caribbean, there's no everybody in the Caribbean that I know, every Afro Latino, even the ones that rep Taino and all that. There's a heavy synthesis of cultures because there was so much Ifa, you know, Lukumi and you know, Voodoo and Palo Mayombe, all these West African and Kikongo and all that up in that area. So the West African culture is still very heavy in the Caribbean, right? But in the United States, like we already, you know, we don't have to beat the dead horse with this. A lot of that was taken away, so there's no roots. However, that doesn't mean that you cannot go back to them and that you cannot represent the ancient civilizations that were in West Africa before colonialism, because from the laziness, I feel like it's laziness to do your research in that area. Everybody just wants to run to Egypt and everybody wants to run to the Middle East and talk about, you know, the Sumerians and this and that, when that has nothing to do with you. You know what I'm saying? Like, and West African culture is cultures, because it's a plethora. It have beautiful things to be proud of. You know, like they even had you know, they had metallurgy for weapons, iron smelting and all that the Americans didn't even know anything about that until after colonialism. You know what I'm saying? So there are achievements there. They just need to be represented. And they are,
because I do see that the Abos have like a lot of Abos that claim that they're 100% Native American and don't. And I'm talking about the ones that don't acknowledge their African ties.
Like, you need to stop their fucking self for that shit.
Like that's stupid.
No,
that's stupid right there. They need man.
Because I see that shit in this group, and that shit is annoying as fuck. Like, what is it about Western Africa that those motherfuckers are ashamed of? You have the Mali Kingdom, you have the Songhai Empire, you have these great empires that rose in Western Africa, and
they mentally and socially disconnected from Africa, bro. They disconnected, bro.
It's pure laziness, bro. Like, it's pure laziness because
they got all that time. They got all that time to know everything about the fucking Middle East, but they can't tell you shit about,
exactly.
You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
Come on, man.
They know everything from Kemet to Nubia to fucking Kush, everything, but they can't tell you.
You know what? You want to know something, pal? You want to know something, family? They really fucking don't. Trust me. They don't, bro. You feel me? Because they'll sit there and they act like they do, and that shit be sounding good, bro. Man, bro, do you know, like, a lot of those people that they be calling by names that they be referring to kings are really not kings, bro, but fucking deities, bro.
Straight up. They weren't even real people.
We've had back and forth with those kind of cats. You know, the whole point is that, like, they want to study everything but Western Africa, which 9 out of 10 is where their heritage lies in. That's the issue. Like, what is it about Western Africa that people don't want to
and I'll tell you personally, as somebody who did not grow up with any West African religion or anything, but throughout my my very early studies in because I used to be into the Moorish Science Temple of America and a whole bunch of other, you know, I went down that rabbit hole already, but even throughout that,
I went down there too, bro.
Yeah, even throughout that, I know personally, I know some elders that are she's a legit priestess of she's of goddamn it, the not Olodumare, the white one, brother Khalid, who the
Well,
the one with white, the color white. What is his name? The Yoruba deity.
oh, Obi, Oba,
No,
You talking about the Orishas?
yeah.
Orishas.
God damn it! Like I knew his name all the time.
Like, I couldn't remember it.
Matt,
Obi.
Matt knows all the Orishas. Which one you describe it?
The head, the the main deity, the father not Heru. I keep thinking Heru because I
Bro,
was
I know
talking.
what you're talking about. I just can't remember the damn name.
No, it's the leader deity. I can't fuck it with
Is
it.
Yeah,
it a male or a
exactly. Like
female?
no, it's a man. Yeah,
It's
it
a
is.
It's a
male.
man.
Yeah. Obatala. So
Obatala. Okay.
yeah, Obatala. So she's a priestess of him and all that. But
Obatala.
Obatala, yeah.
Obatala.
Say that again.
Obatala.
Oh, Obatala.
Yeah. Yep. So
Obatala. Yeah.
yeah, she's a priestess of Obatala, and there's also, you know, obviously the priest that throws the divination, right? Yeah, the babalao, and all of that is they have, you know, they have a deep system, like they have a beautiful system in place of spirituality and spiritual cultivation and so on and so forth. But and there's a whole diaspora of that, and I feel like more so than the Moorish Science Temple of America and the Hoteps and the Hebrew Israelites. I feel like motherfuckers should be going back to that.
Man,
You know what I'm saying?
that shit right there, that Hebrew Israelite shit, man. That shit, man, that shit flew games, bro.
That
Like,
shit is
for real.
freaky, man.
That
That shit
shit's
ain't what it
dangerous.
is, bro. That shit is not what it is, bro.
That shit is dangerous. You know?
It's exactly the kind of bullshit that we need to push back against, because that kind of infectious idea that you're not African, or if you are African, you're a fucking descendant of Ham,
Listen,
cursed,
I
and
promise y'all, I heard a Moor. This dude claiming to be a Moor literally say he's not African. I say, yo, if you read the story about the Moors, it tells you, bro, that they came from Africa.
Exactly.
Like, what the fuck?
No bourgeois league makes that clear.
Bro, this dude said he not African, bro. I died laughing, bro. I said, well, what the fuck are you there, bro?
Hey,
I'm an
all right,
Asian
so
black man. Well, where the fuck you come from in Asia, motherfucker? Shit.
so
You
like
couldn't tell me.
so like I want to ask these brothers something. When you see now, don't you get into this? No, I'm just asking you a question about this. But when you see this, what do you think these people were descendants from Siberia people? Because
no,
aren't these the oldest? Isn't this the oldest tribe of civilization you could find in South America?
No, well, the Olmecs came from the Mukaya culture that they gradually developed. The Olmecs were basically one split off of the Mukaya culture, because the Mukaya culture was a plethora of different. It was just I mean, it's labeled Mukaya because that's how we differentiate it. But you know, it was many different peoples, and the Olmecs just happened to be the one that gradually developed and became better than the rest.
Oh, okay. Okay, so
like
so I know you're like before blacks and natives of the Americas mixed, there were native people with nappy hair. I'm not calling them black, but there were native people with nappy hair, frizzy hair.
well, I don't agree with that, because I know for a fact that Quisqueyan Taínos didn't have nappy hair. And
No, okay. No, I know what you're saying, and I've seen those people. But for example, my grandfather has nappy hair, and it ain't kinky nappy, but it's nappy, is in curly, and it stands up when it gets to a certain level of growth. You know what I mean? And he's dark skinned, but you can see clearly that this is a Mexican man. You know what I mean? And his grandfather, you can see clearly that this man comes from South America. Okay, but would you agree that back in these times, the Olmec people were dark skinned people?
I wouldn't know their skin color, but I would imagine it would have been just like the Zapotec. I mean, my grandma, she's very brown. But as far as like the structure and the facial features, I'll say this: I find it interesting that that they claim to have. I mean, I'm sorry, they don't claim. Nobody's claiming it, but all the evidence points to them coming from the south, like around the Nicaragua area and all that. And we know they brought cacao with them, and cacao is indigenous to the Amazon. And sure enough, it's once you start getting into the Amazon that you find the people with the flat noses and
Yeah, bro.
the
Because
thicker
like
lips.
when I look at this, bro, that shit blows my mind, bro. Like
Right.
that shit. I mean, I know before you picked your decision, you thought like, man, this dude got some big ass lips. This dude have some, you know what I mean, black features to him. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And when I see things like this,
Right.
I in my mind I automatically see this. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Right. Yeah.
And you know,
Yeah.
and
No.
on many ways, it's not just the lookership side of it.
No.
I will
Absolutely.
admit, it is
I-
lookership.
I'll be.
It is
I'll be the
lookership.
right, but I'll be the first to admit that you're right. I mean, when I first came into it, I came through it from the more Science Temple of America perspective, and the MSTA is the original apple. Okay, like let me say that. Like all of these other apples that claim that they oh no that they've had this from family lineage and all that, they're full of shit. Like the MSTA was the original ones that started pushing this Black Native American thing, and Dr. York just put it on steroids because he had that whole personality about him, and the Yamasee were one of the first
Yeah,
that
and I
started.
know what you're saying.
Yeah, yeah, you know what I'm saying. And so and I came through it from videos like Hakeem Bey's the Moorish Paradigm series. I don't know if you ever seen that, but it's really catchy. Like he's got Cypress Hill instrumentals in the background. You know what I'm saying? And he's like giving you know what I'm saying. So it gets you in that zone. You know what I'm saying? And when he presented the the Olmec artwork, and he also presented some of the Mayan artwork and all that. I was convinced. I was okay. Yep, these people were
Because you
black.
were
These people
young in
were,
your understanding.
yeah, exactly. And you know, and I went through that route, and to this day, I mean, you could the first person that sees these type of artwork, I'll be the first to admit that. Yeah, you can easily confuse them for being African until you put your critical thinking hat on and you look for you start asking yourself, okay, so if none of the skeletons match, if the DNA doesn't match, isolated peoples in the Amazon don't match with any other genotypes from other regions or whatnot, what is the explanation of these? And the explanation is that broad noses and thick lips are not exclusive to West Africa. They are not. You can find them amongst some Central American peoples who have broad noses and thick lips, and that are obviously not of the West African stock, right? And then you look at the colossal heads within the context of the whole other plethora of artwork that is in La Venta and the other two sites. The name escapes me at the moment. But they all the figurines, the statuettes, and all that look like. As a matter of fact, they even look more exaggerated than just being Native American. They start looking Japanese and shit. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah, yeah,
so you
yeah.
know what I'm saying? Like they look a little bit more than just regular Native Americans. They start looking like Japanese, and so
I
it's
wonder what
like
made these omics come about looking like this, bro. Because I can't find any
to be
Siberian people
honest,
looking
right?
like this.
Well, to be honest, well, that's what I'm saying. Well, you know, at that point, the people
I
that
could
were
see a
there,
lot of Native Americans looking like Siberians. Like I'm and dealing with the not only the facial structures, dealing with the attire that they wear. You know what I'm saying? And the things
right,
that they wear. You know what I mean? It's you could just match it perfectly. You know,
right, right.
but yeah, keep going on about that.
No, well, I just wanted to say that, yeah, like, well, the Northeast Asian look is especially more dominant in the northern Canada region where you have that Eskimo and the Aliu and all these other peoples right there, right? Because they, you know, those might as well be considered Northeast Asians phenotypically. You know, they're very close. But then once you start gradually going down, like you notice that the more you and with the U.S. is kind of a gap because all the Native Americans have been pretty much wiped out, right? But even from 1800s, I mean from 1900s photography and all that, and even from some of the tribes that are still there that are not mixed, because you obviously do have the $5 Indians that own casinos, but the ones that live in the ghettos and the ones that some of them don't have this white admixture in them. So you see a gradual progression going down in getting darker in skin color. And then once you get to Central America, like especially the Amazon, not only do you get darker in skin color, but the Burdebeek nose that is prominent in the north starts getting flat, and you end up with like the Amazonians, who a lot of them have flat noses. Again, they have flat noses, and that is an important distinction. So you can find those phenotypes
I
there.
could find Nubian people, bro, to this day that look like this. Like it's crazy. I've literally found Nubian people that look just
Right,
like this.
But
You
right,
know,
you
but I'm
exactly,
not gonna say that I haven't found a Mexican brother that looks like this.
exactly,
Well,
exactly, and that's the
Like
thing
the
that we
Olmec statue.
but that has
right.
to do also a lot with
I
environmental
I
pressures,
know
why they
a
have
brother that
Africans
look
like
like
that.
Say it again.
No, I'm
I
saying like
know a brother that look like Stefan. I don't know if he Mexican. He's something though, like a Mexican.
Yeah.
His name,
yeah,
they
like
call him Corn. Big
Now
ass lips.
I want to ask Matt something because I've actually never asked Matt this. Now, okay, when it comes to my methodology, the reason why I side on what I side on is because when I look at things like this, when I look at the architecture, and when I listen to the cosmological stories and I connect them, it
Mhm.
amazes me how synonymous they are with each other. You know what I'm saying? And it amazes me, and it just lets me know, like, okay, aside from me saying that, yo, there's a good chance that these people could have been black people,
Right,
I'm just saying, like, yo, we're really family, bro. We're
right,
really family. Like, all right, we
Man, listen,
we okay, I'm not saying that. Okay, I'm not gonna
listen,
say
bro.
for the
My
sake of
fam,
respecting
my
your
mama,
opinion. Wait, hold
my
on, Matt.
mama,
I'm not gonna
my
say for
mama.
the sake of your opinion that, like, oh, black people are the mother and father to y'all. No, but we are brothers and sisters
right.
to these African people. You know what I mean? As
Absolutely.
Native American people. And now, Matt, what
So
is it that makes you feel like what do you why do you feel that Africans were the first people to be here, or black people?
I don't even think humans were the first thing on this planet. To be honest with you,
Okay, but I mean like
but
dealing with the Americas.
I feel like I can answer your question from a opinion state, like
Yeah,
you know, dark, um, we black people are more dominant
genetically,
when
every
it
type of way you could
when it
think of.
comes to their genetics and their hue. You feel me? Like I don't know if a lot of people know that black people got like extra muscles and shit than anybody. You feel what I'm saying? Like in their legs and shit. You know what I'm saying? And like our bodies are a lot more denser than the average person.
Native Americans have extra tendons than the average person as well.
Right, and you know what's crazy? If you look at the Native Americans, the tribal people. You feel what I'm saying? The people that weren't colonized, and
Hmm.
then
Mhm.
you look at the pictures of Africans that's not colonized, and you go to study them. Them people run for a long ass time, bro. Like they just run and run and run like they built for that shit. You feel what I'm saying? And don't really get tired. You get what I'm saying?
Like the Rahamari people in the Copper Canyons of Mexico.
Mhm.
Right. You know what I'm saying? That shit, like, that's like really something to think about, though. You get what I'm
Right.
saying?
Well, they're all regional adaptations. Like everybody, like a lot of the natives in the Americas. To be honest, I mean, a lot of they're a very short stature. Like most of them, the vast majority of them are very short stature. In Mesoamerica in particular, all Central America, they developed, certain adaptations. Like for example, they have this adaptation where they can survive with a diet mostly consisting of corn without suffering from nutritional deficiencies that any other person on earth that you know
That
you live
shit's
on.
crazy.
Yeah, but that's because the genes are fighting for their life. They're trying to survive, so they mutate. You know, they're forced to mutate upon reproduction. There's mutations that if the mutation is beneficiary to the organism, natural selection is gonna act upon it and choose that select it. So so they have like things like that, just like people from the Himalayas. You claim to be, if anybody claims to be indigenous to the or not the Himalayas, but I'm sorry, the Tibetan highlands, the mountainous area,
Okay.
like those people developed gradually. Again, like I'm sure many other ancestors had to die for like a bottleneck event to take place where only a few, and then this few grew in numbers, but all of them have this mutation in their genes that allows them to survive in high altitude environments where any
Mhm.
one of us will go there right now and fucking start grasping for air, you know what I'm saying,
Exactly.
for
And
oxygen.
I agree with you that it took their ancestors suffering for them to be at the resistant level that they're at in those conditions.
Right, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And Northeast Asians developed more. I mean, they develop more brown fat tissue reproduction in their bodies, especially in their torso area, so that they can withstand the cold. You know, like
Mhm.
so that they can withstand the fucking subarctic environment and climate that any one of us will go there right now and
And
probably
that's
freeze to
amazing, bro. Like I'm so glad that you're bringing up the fact that original people, their bodies have this ability to mutate so that they could thrive and exist in
death
whatever
environments.
environment they go to. But
Right.
white people can't do that
Yeah,
alone. Isn't that crazy? You cannot find a white person's melanin, lack of melanin mutating to where it has a resistance to where they won't get skin cancer and freaking look like a fucking monster after a while, being on the beach looking all red and pink and shit and having boils on their back. We're the
Right.
only people, bro, on the planet that can adapt in this way.
Right. Well, I mean, to be fair to them,
That's
though, to be
fucking amazing,
the
bro. Because
loss
we
of
are literally
melanin.
nature itself, bro, manifested in a physical form. That's why no matter where we're put in nature, we can exist because we are nature.
Right. Right.
These people aren't nature. That's why nature completely destroys them. And that's why these people specifically have to literally build a world on top of our world to exist.
Well, like to be like to just piggyback a little bit on what
Crazy.
Han was talking about earlier, like regarding adaptations and stuff. Because I'm about to connect all this shit. Like I can understand why when you look at that Olmec head and you see that wide nose aperture, you'll be like, oh shit, like these guys had to look like Africans, like they had to be because look at their features and stuff. I can understand why you would think that, but it ties into what he was talking about earlier about adaptation and environmental pressures, the need for the organism to survive successive generations. When the further south you get into South America, you're going to find a similar condition, a similar environment that you would find in Western Africa, which is what the tropics. So
Word.
those people who migrated and settled in the South Americas, of course they had to evolve adaptations to be able to survive in those tropical environments. And when you look at the Western African people, they also have wide nose apertures,
Mhm.
similar environments, similar pressures.
Right.
The organism is going to adapt those pressures so
The
they can.
Samoans and the Tongans have the same, yep, have the same
Yeah.
thing
Yeah.
going on.
Now North Asians and Europeans develop narrow features because of the cold environments. Like
Right, and their
they had
build
a
too. They have stockier build. You ever seen a Mongolian? I've wrestled these niggas. Them niggas is brolic as shit. They come out the womb brolic. Even the whip, they are very stocky because
and them,
they had
them
to
Samoan
develop
people
those.
start too,
They
bro.
had to develop that body type to
Samoan
conserve
people are
heat.
fucking huge.
Like they're fucking beasts, bro. Like they had to develop that body type to be able to conserve heat. If you look at how the ancient Neanderthal looked like, Neanderthals, the hominid Neanderthals, they had a stocky build as well because
right.
they evolved in Europe for millions and millions of years so they can conserve heat.
And I want to talk about that because nature did the same thing twice. Okay, like that the ancestors of the Neanderthals, like Homo heidelbergensis, and some of the first Neanderthals that were around the Middle Eastern area, they were darker. They were darker skinned. Okay,
Exactly.
it wasn't until they get to Europe you find some Neanderthal skeletons that have rickets. You know what rickets means? Rickets means that they dyed their melanated and they started to have vitamin D deficiency, and so their bones started to develop rickets because lower sunlight, and they have too much melanin, and because you have too much relatively too much melanin in the context of that region, right? It means that you require more vitamin D, and if they were not supplementing enough, then they start developing rickets and stuff like that. And
And
so
you're
then
going to have populations dying off until they get to the point where they have that adaptation.
right. Eventually, you had generations.
Exactly.
Eventually, you had generations of Neanderthals that no longer had rickets, and so but you see that they are pale, and it's the
Yes.
same thing happened again once Homo sapiens developed in Northeast Africa or North Africa, and we left out again. This time as another subspecies or species, or however whatever technicality you want to throw in there, but the same thing happened again. Now these Homo sapiens are going up north, Arctic regions. They're melanated, and they start. If you don't adapt, your generations start dying out. So it is what it is.
Can't pass your genetics on to the next generation. And yeah, like you're going to find Neanderthals that are melanated. Like
Yeah.
they lack, and they lack, those skeletons lack the stocky build that later Neanderthals had to be able to
Mhm.
conserve that heat. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
they don't have the same builds because they had not achieved that adaptation
Yeah.
yet. Like these are a bitch. Seriously, they're a bitch. They
Yeah.
can either work for you or work against you.
Or work against you. Now, another example is island dwarfism.
Yeah.
Nature did the same thing again twice. Even before Homo sapiens developed, Homo floresiensis that was out in Indonesia, is a very short stature, and they hypothesized that he would have been direct descendant of Asian Homo erectus, or maybe some other descendant of Homo erectus. But the point is that he, they Homo erectus left, and he wasn't that short. But these people eventually got really short over thousands of years, um, because they were in Indonesia and the type of environment. And that was before Homo sapiens. Then you have Homo sapiens, and the same thing happens to the pygmies of the Congo, and the same thing happens to the Negrito populations of South Asia,
And you also
like the Aera
Guinea.
and so on. Yeah.
And another thing that's amazing, bro, is now that I think about it, we agree that these Native Americans, that all the that these Asians, that these all these people, they originated from the African ancestor.
Right. Right.
So now that I really think about it, bro, like when I look back at what I said earlier, dealing with the pyramids and how else would they have known this, I bet y'all can agree on this. You could disconnect an ancient Nubian, right, from his culture,
Hmm.
and you could, but check this out. You could take a Nubian child, right, that was raised in the Nubian culture in its purest form. You could strip him from that, and you could put him around so many, things that are opposite of his culture, and thousands of years of him and his people breeding that particularly have been taken away from their culture. They will come about just from what's in their DNA, knowing certain things that their ancestors knew about the cosmos. And they'll come about with certain knowledge about how to do things just due to the fact that it's in their DNA. Would you agree on that?
I would agree in the sense that we can grow to have
We can
certain.
activate our DNA, and it could bring about things that our ancestors did. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like I would agree with like certain affinities. Like for example, and more genes are being discovered every day. I don't even know if this is factual, but I'm just throwing it out there as an example. Like you could argue that maybe Mexican people have a stronger resistance to spicy foods or some shit like that, right?
Hmm.
You know, and
Ah,
but but
ah,
you but you know,
ah.
you talking about but you talking more of like intellectual level. I mean, you know, I get more S&Ps. Studies are being done on genes, so like S&Ps that are linked to intelligence and so on and so forth. And that's a controversial topic, like the whole IQ thing and all that. But yeah, I mean, there's some things, even with mood and things that deal with personality that can potentially be tied back to genes, and many would argue that they are. You
Yeah,
know,
even mental illnesses,
yeah,
how they affect one population or one person over another, that can be tied back to genetics as well, like
right.
Exactly.
balances in
You're
the
right.
brain, and how people react to them. Like we're still uncovering a lot about the human genome that we still haven't completely had a firm understanding of. Like we're still finding things about it. That's the
I
beauty.
remember Hunt told me a long time ago that there was a dramatic change in the genome that nobody can really figure out.
Well, yeah, there's a variety of different changes because again, like you have from starting from Africa, you had different groups migrating out of Africa and having to deal with these different environmental pressures over thousands and thousands of years. You're going to have different people's genetics changing so they can adapt to that environment and continue to survive successive generations.
Yeah.
So
And
you
you know what the freakiest part about it is that at the end of the day, and this is something that Richard Dawkins talks on like on the selfish gene and the extended phenotype. You will
even
have to
talks
read
about
his
it
books.
being us regressing because
Yeah.
he even talks
Well,
about us regressing in certain ways.
yeah, but the thing that he talked the thing that tripped me out is that the real organism that is trying to survive is not even us, bro. It's the genes. Like it's
Yeah.
our genes that are trying to live on. They don't give a fuck about the organism. If you change phenotypically into some other shit that's unrecognizable from today, like the genes that were responsible for bipedalism, for example, or having robust skin or something along those nature in along those lines, like those genes consider themselves like winners, right? Because they withstand it regardless of how different the organism changed. They withstood. You know what I'm saying?
Right? No,
So
that
mm,
shit is true. That,
I need everybody to look at the time on that Google Hangout and look how long we've been building.
and that's a beautiful thing, isn't that?
And it's a beautiful thing that we came to this point, bro. Like I'm now at the point where I'm not even gonna acknowledge people trying like pushing the agenda that that these Siberians and these Mongoloids are invaders. I'm
mhm,
not gonna push that no more. I'm gonna strictly be on the fact that we're a family, dude. Because if
mhm,
you take these Native Americans, these Caribbean people, and you put them back in Africa, thousands and thousands of years later, they will mutate back to what their ancestors looked like.
yeah, yeah.
That shit's amazing, bro. And that
Yeah.
just proves that we are family, bro. Period.
It's all
You know what I
about
mean?
environmental pressures, and also like how Hunt said, it's the selfish gene, the need to survive. Like
Mhm,
that's why I was when I was reading on Richard Dawkins' paper, he was talking about also how like we're regressing because there's certain things that we do now that our ancestors that our ancestors used to do that we don't do anymore. For example, we don't do a lot of heavy lifting like our ancestors used to do as far as building and stuff because we're over reliant on technology. So
right.
we run the risk of having like issues with muscle atrophy and osteoporosis and things of
Right.
that nature, like and the gene doesn't really give a fuck if as the
Right.
organism suffers from that. The gene doesn't care as long as it can be passed on, just
Yeah.
because we're doing certain things that our ancestors never did. You know, we're actually more lazy than our ancestors. We work less than our ancestors. We don't do as much as our ancestors. We don't use a lot of our energies like our ancestors do. So you'll see 100,000 years from now. Well, we won't. None of us will be alive to tell. But 100,000 years from now, like humans could look vastly very different, skinnier. You know, different.
And that's another reason why I don't fucks with technology, yo, because that shit makes us a reliable, lazy, and completely disconnected people from nature. Because when it really comes down to it, nature is our home. Nature is our everything. And when we disconnect ourselves from that, we go about becoming sick, dying at earlier ages. You know what I'm saying? The state that we are in now, wearing these rubber shoes, disconnecting the electrolytes and minerals that travel through the body when walking barefooted, the fact that we're not, you know what I'm saying, outside dealing with nature, this shit is hazardous on our being. You know what I'm saying? And you know what I mean? This is why I have an issue with technology. You know what I'm saying? Period. So I feel like it's highly important that we need to buy our, you know what I mean? When it really comes down to it, people talking about like what Matt was saying about sovereignty and about independence, you know, and a lot of people wanting black people and Indian people to have their own shit going on, you know what I mean? And their own economics and their own way of doing things. That shit can't really happen here. Because every time it does, it gets blown into oblivion. Look what happened in Black Wall Street. You know what I'm saying? Look what happens every time our people come together and try to do something collectively independent, opposite from our oppressors' benefit. We get destroyed and put right back down to the level of consumers that we are. So when it really comes down to it, we need to return to the ways of our ancestors and leave most of the shit that we have become attached to in this world that is colonized away, and we need to drop it in order for our people to survive and be pure in our knowledge and in our ways and in our mentality. You know what I'm saying? We need to buy land. We need to go back to South America and buy land. You know what I'm saying? And we need to start being more connected with how our ancestors lived. Because like you said, on a physical level, if we were to come face to face with our ancestors, we wouldn't be able to keep up with them in no type of way. When it comes to gathering things, running, when it comes to eyesight, when it comes to focus, when it comes to all these things, you know what I mean? When it comes to just living long, period, we wouldn't be able to compete with them.
Not even like even it's the physicalities of it. We're also over reliant on medication, so we don't develop natural antibodies like our ancestors do. Like we like our ancestors would have to fight against diseases. We're over relying on also medication. So in 100,000 years, it is a possibility that humans will start to, they could start to regress to the point where they're breaking down. They won't be able to fight against pathogens of different variety of pathogens because the body will be so used to medication and antiviruses. Like they won't be able to fight against infection.
Exactly.
Like that's a thing that could possibly happen. Like
that would be like the most interesting thing is how would humans look like 2 million years from now? Like what the if we even make it that long.
The one thing about us is that we are in control somewhat of our evolution, but evolution is a fucked up game. Natural selection is a fucked up game. Like that is one of the ways that we can really fuck ourselves over as a species, not being able to fight against pathogens because our body is just so used to all these kind of different chemicals that we put in, and that's that's one way. The evolution is a scary thing. Like it's not a game.
And a lot of people don't understand that most of the things that we're eating today aren't things that are native to the planet in the way the planet brought about vegetation, fruits, and even the meats that we're eating aren't natural and sprung forth from the planet. A lot of people don't know that this chicken that we're eating, that this pig that we're eating, that this cow that we're eating, these are genetically modified organisms. The cow is not indigenous to this planet. In the cow that you see when you go to these freaking McDonald's farms, the chicken that you're seeing is not the original chicken of this planet, the gullah gullah you find in Asia. You know what I'm saying? The pig that you see, this pink little motherfucker, this is a genetically modified organism, and from tons of plants that are unnatural and genetically modified and made, we are literally mutating our genes to be reliable on synthetic things. You know what I'm saying? And that's what's going to overall destroy us in the end. That's why, if we're going to take any steps back to our ancestors, the main steps we need to take, and one of the first steps we need to take, is what sustains our life, and that's our dietary choice. You know what I'm saying? We need, our ancestors dealing with Native American and North America, and I bet this was present in South America. We didn't even cook meat the way we cook meat today. We ate meat as jerky. You know what I'm saying? We sun cooked it.
Yeah.
And it kept a lot of the minerals inside of it, and it didn't turn it into a carcinogenic the way cooking meat does today. You know what I'm saying? So dealing with the dietary ways, we need to return back to our ancestors' ways. And dealing with the way we live and interact with the outside world, we need to return back to our ancestors' ways. You know what I'm saying? Because if we don't, check this out. If we don't, 1,000 to 5,000 years from now, they will look back at us being Native Americans as a freaking theory.
Yeah.
Due to how much we have mutated outside of our natural selves, because we have a little bit of our natural selves today. You know what I'm saying? We can still go out in nature to a lake and be like, damn, this shit's fucking peaceful. There's going to be a certain point 5,000 years from now where that shit's not even going to exist to us. And we're going to look at that shit like, yo, who the fuck wrote this fairy tale that I'm looking at in this history book? You know what I'm saying? So in order to preserve our ways and our culture and who we are as a people, we need to start becoming our ancestors. You know what I mean? Literally, you know what I'm saying? Literally becoming our ancestors. And I'm not saying there's nothing that we have evolved, you know what I'm saying, from our ancestors to where we are now, but there is more things that we have become that are decaying us. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I feel we need to literally buy our own lands, yo. And we need to literally start living the way our ancestors lived 95% of the way. You know what I'm saying? Like straight up and down, in order for us to survive and preserve what we are and who we are and what we're proud of and what we love. I know Hun loves the fact. I know Hun loves his history. I know the fact that he loves that he's native to the Americas and he has this beautiful culture. I know the fact that that Khalid loves his history. You know what I'm saying? And in order for us to truly preserve it so it can echo into the future, we need to return back to our ancestors' ways and become our ancestors, man. Period.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, like I don't like this is the thing, like we live in the present time, and it is what it is. Like we can try to, revive as much as we can, but there are things that unfortunately are fucking lost, and that's not something that we can control. The best thing we could do is make do of a bad situation and move forward. Be able to move forward with knowledge, common sense, and logic.
Common sense, man. We could at least take that stuff back that our ancestors had, man, because we don't have that shit now.
And you know what? It's funny you bring up meat, because for a lot of people who like to deny like evolutionary science, the only reason why humans were able to evolve to where we are now is because our brains, just specifically talking about our brains, is because we were able to learn how to cook meat.
Right.
The protein for meat.
That and psychedelics, bro. No, the stone ape theory.
That is, but that's that's a lie. That's a lie. That's white man's, but that's the truth though. The cooking of meat. Have we never learned how to cook meat and being able to use the protein from meat to grow our brains to 1,300 cubes? We would still be like a fucking spider monkey in Africa eating berries and shit. It was because of meat, because of the protein that meat allowed our ancestors to be able to grow. So therefore their brains were able to grow. They were able to use more energy and able to think and able to evolve and able to change. It's because of the fact that we learned how to cook meat. We were the first species to actually like one of the first hominid species to actually do it. So
exactly. But I feel like the reason why we came about doing that is because of climate change and due to the fact that a lot of our resources dealing with fruits and vegetation became scarce to us. You know what I'm saying? Because when it really comes down to it, when you really break it down, all protein comes from vegetation. All protein. And the reason why you find the highest amounts of protein in beef and in Angus beef and in all these different animals, it's because, dude, you're literally eating a vegan. You know what I'm saying? You're literally eating a vegan. And when you study the body and how it creates protein from eating meat, from eating vegetation, this is why meat has such a potent uh, section of protein, is because these cows are vegans. It's because these, people say like, oh,
proteins come from plants.
period. Proteins come from plants, period.
And it gets into the animals from the animals, digesting it. Then we eat the animals. And that's how
exactly. And what I'm saying, because I'm a vegan. I'll tell you, I'll be honest with you, I'm a vegan. But I put it like this: why not go to the source from which these things are coming from? You know what I mean? A lot of people tell me like, man, you a vegan, you against eating meat, our ancestors ate meat. I'm like, bruh, I'm not even saying that. I'm just saying the shit we eating today isn't even close to what our ancestors were eating back in the day. You know what I'm saying? It is destroying us. You know what I'm saying? This shit is destroying us, literally. There's hormones in our meats. There's fucking crazy shit in our meats that's literally mutating our DNA. DNA, I said GNA. DNA, you know what I'm saying? And that shit's wild, yo. You know what I mean? And it's crazy that when we return back to eating alkaline, and I'm pretty sure y'all familiar with Dr. Sebi.
Yeah.
And eating in this way of nature, bro, we become more healthy. We don't get sick no more. I'll tell you this, I've been a vegan for 4 years, family, and I haven't gotten sick one time. And I've been around people with every type of flu that is coming out since. And I haven't been sick once. You know what I'm saying? And I know this is true due to the fact that the meat we're eating isn't even really meat. It's some fake genetically modified shit that's man-made. You know what I'm saying? But when it comes to the fruits and vegetation, these things are still coming from the earth naturally the way they were back in the day. I know people that have land in Honduras and Costa Rica and in Jamaica that grow their own vegetables and fruits the same way their ancestors did. And they're coming about with the same benefits. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So I feel like the dietary choices is what is going to echo and nourish our culture into the future and give us longevity. You know what I'm saying?
No, I feel you, but bro, I'm gonna have to wind up ending this because this is my live and shit, and a nigga gotta work in like fucking 8 hours. So my black
ass, yeah, no doubt. But I'm glad that we came down to the bottom ground and the common ground, compromising that we are family.
Absolutely, bro.
I can't end it better than that.
Is Matt still here?
Yeah, Matt's still there.
Yeah, Matt. Hey, man. My apologies. I want to make a public apology to you for my ad hominems earlier. So I hope we can have some peace after this.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, we good, man. Like I told you before, I ain't never really had beef with you, bro.
Yeah.
Right up and down.
We'll definitely build again after this shit, and like you, so you guys can at least know who I am. And y'all motherfuckers don't think I'm a fucking female and shit, because that's I've never heard some bullshit like that in my life.
Hey man, I apologize like a motherfucker.
Especially when I'm the nigga that spoke to you on the phone, bro. Like
that was you that spoke to me on the phone?
That was me, son. I'm the nigga that you call, bro. I'm everybody, bro. I'm all over
bro, the place. The switching of these pages due to people canceling your shit got me confused.
But that's why, because niggas, like, as soon as you start posting some real shit, some bitch ass niggas like to do that shit, so they like to suspend your crime. You know how that goes. Wow. We all gotta fight our battles, but we definitely gonna have another build.
Definitely.
Hopefully one of these admins can add us back into into the group and shit like that.
Listen, bro, this what group you trying to get in? The Native American group, right?
Yeah, we trying to get back into the American shit because
fuck that. We can make our own group, bro.
No, I feel like we could keep having builds on
Bro,
here and just post
I
them.
told you I put you back in there, bro. Just let me know who you is, though. You feel me? Like inbox me so I can know who you is. I'll put you back in that group because I think I am an admin of that group.
You are.
I damn sure make myself an admin. Motherfuckers always making me an admin.
All right, facts. Yeah, I mean, like we feel like we could build here because it's it's better than Facebook Live because then you could have 4 people. You could have like as long as we have rules like someone goes first and we're respectful.
And then we could just share the link.
And is it like Facebook Live? Is it like Facebook? Can you put statuses on that shit?
Like we could share the link. Like the only thing is that people can't. Like for example, if people are commenting on the link, we can't see it in real time, but they could click on the link and watch us talk. Like they can view this because we're live right now. You know what I mean? It's just it's easier because instead of having 2 people, you could have 4 people talking too, like giving different perspectives. So I'll
be honest with you, yo. I'd rather be a part of a page that is created and has admins that people have mentality like ours than be a part of some final page bullshit. You know what I'm saying? That's constantly intellectually masturbating back and forth.
Right. I mean, as long I feel like maybe these links could like just help.
You know what I mean? Instead of the whole genetic stuff and the whole me bringing about the correlations between the tribes, I'd rather have a page, bro, to where Hun is sharing the Native America's ways, and I'm sharing the Native America's ways, and Khalid is sharing the Dominican ancestry and ways of life, and Matt is breaking down the African ways of life, and we're all doing this shit, teaching each other shit about each other's cultures, bro. Like that shit would be way more amazing.
Yeah, you know I mean, we're doing that. We're doing it right now. Like that's why we're in this group to begin with because we want to offer different perspectives. That's why I invited y'all because I was like, look, if you niggas ain't scared to fucking just get on like Google Hangouts, let's just have a conversation. Let's dialogue. We're not going to agree with each other on everything or maybe even nothing, but people will look at this and walk away with their own perspective. And at the end of the day, people are gonna think what they're gonna think. Let them have their own way. But let this be an example that even people who might not have nothing in common and we probably wouldn't even like fuck with each other maybe in real life or whatever the case may be, we can have some kind of common ground. We're all grown ass at the end of the day. We should all be able to conduct ourselves with a sense of decorum. So I think we all agree with that.
Exactly. And with that being said, we family, motherfucker.
Shoot a request to that group, man, and I'll try to add you back, bro.
But
facts, man, facts. I'm gonna post this shit. It's gonna be up because I got one account in there, but I don't know how long that's gonna stay in there before this shit starts to act up. So I'm gonna post it as quick as possible, and maybe I won't have free time till Wednesday. But maybe on Wednesday or some shit like that, we could build again, and I'll invite y'all back in, or y'all click the link, and then we'll have another build.
You can post this live on the internet.
Yeah, you could post this. This shit is live, period. Yeah, because Google Hangouts, what they did was they connected it to YouTube, so this is streaming on my page, on my YouTube page. But you could watch it through Facebook. Like the link is there. So anybody who was probably watching or clicking, they could listen to this whole thing.
Once you can save, like after you're done doing it though, after like it's done being live, can you save the video and still post it?
Yeah, because it's saved to my YouTube.
Put a link anywhere,
bro. Bro, share this joint, man.
Yeah, I'm gonna post it right now in the group and shit real quick because it's saved to my YouTube page, so it can never be deleted. Even if they delete my account, it's still there.
Okay, no doubt. Okay, for real, no doubt.
No, people need to have an open mind about things, you know what I'm saying, and learn. Especially be humble to receive what somebody is saying, see where they actually coming from before writing them off,
Yeah, I agree with that. I don't have an issue with that. But on that note, I'll check y'all motherfuckers later because niggas gotta go to sleep, bro. I gotta work. I'll let y'all later because then we'll have 4 more hours of this shit.
Yeah, straight up. Yeah, man. Y'all be cool, man.
All right, brother. Stay.
All right, peace, peace.
All right.
All right, yeah. Peace.
All right, man.